The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Yo, 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 what up? This is Rocky Asuka Romero of Chaos, and you are listening to Keepin It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review the NJPW STRONG Independence Day shows and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, ProWrestlingTees.com/Social Suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com, frequently updated and with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how was your 4th of July?
4th of July. 4th of July is a weird holiday, man, because it's my favorite holiday, or at least one of them, right? I love to cook out, love the fireworks, the whole shebang. But we got a dog that hates the 4th of July, and because he's somewhat medically compromised, we can't leave him to his own devices while the house is under attack from the giant booming noises in the sky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for the past few years, we just stay in and hang out with him, which is fun. I mean, I'm not complaining about it, but it's a different experience from what I'm used to, where you go out, you watch the fucking fireworks,
Yeah.
And they go hard, bro. We're out here in Trinity, out in the sticks, bro. They go to 2 in the morning. It's kind of fucking crazy.
Blowing off that Cody Rhodes pyro.
Nah, bro, they're doing the Brock Lesnar pyro. You know what I mean? The big pyro. Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, Charlotte at WrestleMania pyro.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm lucky that our dog is not, doesn't really care about the fireworks. So yeah, we're able to see some fireworks. Got some barbecue over at my parents' house, and also.
Bro, you never invite me to shit. You need to start inviting me to some things that you are doing, and feed me. We got a clubhouse, and I saw signs around town where the clubhouse was they're in barbecue food, and you just sign up. You pay some money under the table that's off the records from the IRS, and you get a little gimmick, and it was kind of funny. We were the only people that were literally probably under 50 in this whole. I mean, it's everybody old as fuck.
Old's on top.
Yeah, I like the food. She didn't like the food, whatever. But got myself a hamburger, hot dog, handshake. The deal. And then the old people were like, "Oh, you gotta go. There's some lovely dessert in the back. Brenda made it, and it's And I went back there, and there's no way Brenda made this, bro, because it's in that black tray with the plastic cover on it from Publix with the tape on the sides. Like, she did not make this.
Brenda's a worker. She's working. She worked all those old fields.
I'm like, nobody made this. This came from Publix. Like, come on. This is Winn-Dixie.
Brenda's like, nah, I made it.
Yeah, they're like, Brenda's the best. I'm like, all right.
Oh man.
Yeah, so 4th is cool, I guess, whatever. But yeah, you need to start inviting me to shit, bro.
To the cookout, invite you to the cookout.
Yeah, I deserve a plate at the cookout.
Yeah, you're one of us.
I wouldn't go that far.
There might be some listeners who still think that you're, us.
Bro, remember we were all like at a house show back in the day. We were all at like a SmackDown holiday house show, and we were like all in a chat or something, and we were all showing pictures, like taking selfies of ourselves. And this was in the Facebook
Wrestling Square Circle, yeah.
Wrestling Square Circle Facebook group that we run. And I took a picture of myself and I put it in the group, and like people were like, "What?
Josh isn't black?"
They thought I was black. And bro, I've never said anything to indicate that was the case on any level. But my picture just wasn't my profile picture wasn't my picture. It was like probably the logo for Keeping It Strong Style.
Yeah.
And people were like, "This is blowing my mind right now." And I'm like, "How, bro? I never did anything." Like,
well, the people assume,
I'm not out here appropriating.
That they see you with me and Rich and James. Or
That's racist, bro.
He's got to be one of them. Oh,
that shit was funny.
Oh man. Well, we got some New Japan Strong to talk about on the show here today. Before we do that, we gotta do the June match of the month, June wrestler of the month. That's right, we're in July, halfway through the year. So let's list out here our June match of the month, wrestler of the month.
If you go by our calendar year, we're past the halfway mark.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So the New Japan June match of the month, and it kind of feels like cheating a little bit.
Why is it cheating?
Well, because it's Forbidden Door, and like in kayfabe, Forbidden Door is like a joint New Japan AEW show, but it's really a Tony Khan show. It's one of those.
I see the lion mark in the graphics.
So we're gonna count it, but I mean, it either was gonna be match of the month or it was gonna be excursion match of the year contender. So you gotta take it one way or the other. But this June New Japan match of the month, none other than Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega 2 from Forbidden Door. And we've done a full review on that match, so we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of it once again, but an incredible match. In fact, I think that was our last episode, was the review of Forbidden Door. It's been so long.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, go, if you haven't heard that yet, go on Keepin It Strong Style feed or Social Suplex feed or One Nation Radio feed. There's also the YouTube video up on the Social Suplex YouTube. So tons of ways to listen and watch last week's joint review of Forbidden Door that we did with Rich Latta and James Boyd from One Nation Radio.
Yeah, we got a lot of positive feedback from that episode, so thank you guys. I'm taking just a very brief look to see what else was highly rated in the month of June. I mean, there's some really great matches. The match with Tanahashi, Kiyomiya, Miyahara versus Okada, Kano, and Aoyagi. That's got like a 9.12 and got a 4.5 from Dave. The BCC versus Tanahashi, Okada, Ishii match from Dominion, very highly rated. Suji and Sonata from Dominion, very highly rated. So some really great matches in the month, but kind of everything kind of got blown out of the water when it comes to a true blue match of the year contender, and that's exactly what Omega and Ospreay was. So match of the month.
Then for the wrestler of the month, we're going to go with the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada. Had a great June. Had the big Never Six-Man match at Dominion. Got 5 stars from Dave. I gave it 5 also. Him, Ishii, and Tanahashi defending against Moxley, Claudio, and Shooter. Then he also had the Altogether Six-Man that you mentioned, also highly rated. And then, of course, the dream match with the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, at Forbidden Door. And even though Bryan had a broken arm going into in the middle of the match, still ended up being a great matchup. Most people are 4.5 to 4.75 on it. So great matchup and great month for Okada.
You know, Jeremy, I threw this out there. I didn't say this on last week's episode. And, talking to Rich, he talked a little bit of sense into me about why this probably isn't true. But I just want to throw this out there. What if Danielson doesn't have a broken arm at all? What if shit's a work?
Why?
Well, because then they can say, I tapped out Kazuchika Okada with a broken fucking arm.
Yeah.
And then he's got that claim that, like, even with the broken arm, I beat you. And they can, like, do a lot with that. There's a lot of marketability you can do off of that, rematches, but not even just that. Like, you can build his whole character off of that moving forward. Like, make him, obviously he's always been, like, a technical wizard and a, submission master, but, like, it's like getting your red belt, He's a master now. The only thing that and the other thing I was thinking about it too is, like, how do we know he really broke his arm? What have we seen? An X-ray from his professional wrestler wife? How do I know that shit's real? I don't know that that's real. She's in the business, bro. She's a worker. I'm not gonna believe Brie Bella.
Brie,
but Rich did throw something out there. He said, he's probably gonna have to miss Blood and Guts.
Yeah, he is. They're advertising, mystery men for both the Elite, because Kingston will be in the G1, and then they're advertising the mystery guy for the Blackpool Combat Club side of things.
Well, if something ever pops up and we hear, shit wasn't on the up and up, I'm the first to say it.
Yeah, if it was a work, I think they would have done the Cody gimmick where he gets, like, the steel, cast thing, and he goes into Blood and Guts and uses his arm as a weapon.
No, they got, yeah, that would be cool. Let's just hope they can do a Blood and Guts correctly. Just one.
We'll see. All right, so that's June match of the month, wrestler of the month. Let's talk about Independence Day from New Japan Strong. So this past week we had 2 shows from Cork and Hall. That's why we delayed this week's recording. Normally we record on Monday nights, but with these shows happening Tuesday and Wednesday, we decided to push off the record tonight. That way we can spend a good amount of time talking about 2 pretty good shows here. And then next week, we'll have the full episode to preview G1 Climax 33 with our good pal, Chris Samsa.
Does he know he's coming on the show next week?
I think he does. I'll message him again to make sure. But yeah.
All right. He's probably listening.
Yeah.
Cool. You're on next.
Chris, if you're listening, you are joining us.
Holla if you hear me.
Bring the stat sheets, brother. So New Japan Strong Independence Day. These were 2 shows from Cork and Hall in Tokyo, Japan. Pay-per-view on NJPW World. 2 shows for $30. Let's start off with night 1, which was
and we have to preface this by saying 2 nights under one event name, and they did 12,000 attendance
each night, or
cumulative. 12,000 Cork and Hall cumulative 2 nights.
Yeah, that place was packed. It was jam packed.
I'm lying, but I was told that you can, when you have a 2-night event and it's under the same name, you can just bump it up by a few thousand and just claim that, and that's what it was.
I was about to say, I knew Corkin. I didn't think it was that high, but it was pretty jam packed there, though.
No, I think they did just above 1,400 each night, which is pretty much capacity crowd, which is really great. And this was an awesome crowd, and not just an awesome crowd, but like this was full of sickos, bro.
Yeah.
Okay? This wasn't your typical Corkin crowd. This was like the Corkin crowd that's been watching Strong because they knew who everybody was and they knew like all the chants. And there was definitely a strong contingency of like
ghouls.
Deathmatch fans.
Yes, there were, Japanese Dan Coffins out there.
Yeah. The ghouls.
But yeah, the crowd was great. It kind of reminded me of the Honor Rising shows they used to do with Ring of Honor back in the day when you had those few Corkin shows and the Corkin would be packed. They knew all the ROH guys. They knew all the ROH chants. They were cheering for Beer City Bruiser. Like they knew it all.
That was definitely the vibe. I almost forgot about those shows, to be honest with you. I was trying to find a good comparison, but I was like, these shows in a way almost remind me of like, sort of Fantasticmania, but everything is still within that realm of Strong Style. So it's like it truly was an American spin on your classic New Japan Pro Wrestling, very much in the same vein as what you just mentioned, like the Honor Rising shows from back in the day when ROH used to come over. It's a lot like that in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So we had Ian Riccaboni and Chris Charlton on the English commentary call. So night one, we opened up here. This was Tuesday, July 4th. We had a pre-show 6-man tag match that opened up the broadcast with Oscar Lube, Ryusuke Taguchi, and Yo defeating Dragon Libre, Kengo, and Takahiro Katori. 10 minutes and 45 seconds.
I wasn't too familiar with the independent talent that came through. Once I was watching the show, they kind of explained that these gentlemen hail from the Freedoms promotion, which is where Jun Kasai has made his name in a lot, and had a lot of his legendary battles in Japan. So that's where these guys came from. And at first, when we, because we didn't get to do a preview for these shows, unfortunately, the good news, everything that I was going to predict is exactly what happened, and I would have been 100% correct if we had done a preview. So
same here.
Yeah, perfect. We would have been 100% perfect, and nobody can tell us otherwise. But in all seriousness, I didn't know who these guys were, and I was a little confused. I'm like, it's Strong, but it's in Japan, but it's for the U.S., for Independence Day, but then we're bringing in guys from the Japanese Indies. Like, I'm not computing all this. But once they sort of explained it on commentary, it made all the sense in the world. Like in North America, the Strong brand has a reputation of going from city to city, town to town, and gathering some of the best local talents that are available and kind of integrating them and giving them a showcase and a little bit of a platform so that they can, sort of be introduced to the world on the Strong platform. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they were continuing to do, but just in Tokyo. So whereas you might not see like Dragon Libre and these other gentlemen on your traditional, New Japan Road to show or something like that, putting them on Strong and kind of continuing that same tradition of what we see over in North America made a lot of sense once they sort of explained it that way. Plus having Jun Kasai in the main event and having some of his underlings there and letting them kind of get some exposure as well as experience. And then they also worked as like ring boys, not ring boys, but like sort of like the
Young
security
Lions.
detail.
Yeah,
like the Lions, like basically working in that same capacity during the main events was another sort of benefit to them as well. So I liked that they did this actually once I sort of understood more why they were doing it.
Yeah, same with you. Yeah, Ian and Chris did a great job kind of explaining that kind of contrast in what you get with Strong and doing that there in Japan. So yeah, I thought it made all sense in the world to include those indie talents. And it was a fun opening 6-man match. You had a lot of antics here, and there's a stuffed bunny that got in the mix here, and but ultimately,
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I think it's Takahiro Katori. I think that's the gentleman who brings a stuffed bunny rabbit with him, which was kind of a little bit, I don't know. I'm not gonna throw any shade because I don't know the timelines and stuff, but like he was kind of dressed similarly to Hiromu Takahashi. Similar vibes, similar look. Stuffed Rabbit, Daryl. You see what I'm getting at there? Like, I don't know. Like, who wore it better? That's basically what we were seeing.
Yeah, he was the Hiromu at home version.
Yeah, we got Hiromu at home. But the Hantai crew decided to steal this gentleman's stuffed bunny rabbit, and they kept putting it down their pants and doing lewd, lascivious acts. And I don't know. Some people are into it. Not me so much, but it is just kind of like opening show, house show antics. So it is what it is. It's a little bit of a storyline that kind of continued on the next evening. But we did see some good athleticism and work from the visiting team.
Yeah, I like the Dragon Libre. I don't mark for anybody who has a mask and has some dragon in their name.
I don't think there's a single wrestler, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think there's a single wrestler that I've ever disliked who used the name Dragon. Once your name's Dragon, you have to be fucking
raw.
Like, you just have to be raw. Like
Shingo, Bryan Danielson, Ultimo Dragon, like Ricky Steamboat,
Ice Dragon, all of them.
Amazing.
Ice Dragon, bro.
So Yo gets to win here, direct drive on Dragon Libre. So fun pre-show match there.
Yep.
So then the main card opens up. Our good friend Rocky Romero hits the ring, and he said New Japan Strong Wrestlers have been waiting to come here for 3 years. So tonight, enjoy our American Strong Style Wrestling. Welcome to New Japan Strong Independence Day. And we got a little VTR video. Took us to the first match of the evening on the main card, which was Bad Dude Tito from TMDK defeating the DKC.
Yeah, Bad Dude Tito, he's done a few tours in Japan in the past, and so he's not necessarily a stranger to this audience. DKC was someone I wasn't totally sure how he would be received by the Korakuen Hall crowd, and I definitely think that the crowd was more in favor of Bad Dude Tito, just generally speaking. Again, he's been here before, and he definitely endears himself to Japanese style wrestling. We've said it before, like, there's so many different people that he sort of reminds you of, but I think the strongest comparison is like a young Dr. Death Steve Williams, and anyone that wrestles that way and has that look is going to get over here. But with all that being said, I thought DKC had a much better reaction from the crowd than I was maybe anticipating, and that was the first.
Well, DKC has been to Japan before. There was a tour he did last year.
That's right, he did the Super Junior Tag League, right?
I don't think it was Tag League. There was some like random tour that he was on, that he was a bunch of undercards.
I forgot he was here. Okay, but this is the first time he's been back since then with the full gimmick and everything like that. So that probably actually is a better point, because I didn't realize he'd been here before. But the crowd was so into him that I was like, oh shit, these people watch Strong. Like, they know, they know who these characters are, and they're really into the brand, which makes sense because it's been airing on New Japan World for quite a while. So
3 years.
Yeah. And then I thought the match was very good. I thought that both men had a lot of high spots and good points, and it wasn't so much a one-sided beatdown as I was maybe anticipating. And first time matchup between these two guys. But the biggest thing at the very, very end here was Bad Dude Tito finishing off DKC with the Steiner screwdriver, which I did not expect, and it was fucking awesome.
Dude, I popped huge. I jumped out the couch when he pulled up the Steiner screwdriver. You mentioned about wrestlers that he looks like he also can remind you of a young Scott Steiner. And so pulling out the Steiner screwdriver was like a perfect, kind of semblance there for him and kind of how he models himself. And yeah, that was a great finish. I hope he continues to use that going forward. But like you mentioned, he's a guy that I feel like really fits into the New Japan Strong Style. He's somebody, like, if this was like the 80s or 90s, he would be like that, wild foreigner coming in. He'd be like that Dr. Death. He'd be a Steiner Brothers. He'd be one of those kind of big, kind of brooding guys just throwing people around that people would really dig, and I think the crowd were into him here. A lot of big power moves, lariats before the Steiner screwdriver. He had a really great blue thunder bomb for a great near fall, and then finished him off with the Steiner screwdriver. And really good win here for the bad dude Tito.
One thing that made that also very compelling, they were talking about how he was competing here with the separated shoulder.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
need medical attention, but he's kind of putting that off so that he could be here on this tour and work these matches. And he was definitely working with the sling there. So now, I might not believe Bryan Danielson broke his arm, but I believe Bad Dude Tito has a separated shoulder. But I want to say I thought DKC had a very good showing, and it takes a lot of balls to be willing to take a Steiner screwdriver, even though like you mentioned, it'd be cool for him to continue to use that. That's one of those moves where you can only use it if the people you're wrestling are willing to take it, or
they trust you,
they're job guys and they have no option other than to take it. But most main wrestlers are not going to, because the margin of error is so slim.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hats off to DKC, because he was like, if I'm going over, or like, if you're going over, brother, like, you're going over big.
Yeah.
Steiner screwdriver.
So next match, we had the filthy team of Jarrell Nelson, JR Kratos, and Royce Isaacs defeating Alex Zane, Lance Archer, and Ryohei Oiwa 10 minutes and 26 seconds.
Yeah, very interesting. We got to see Team Filthy here, and then first time seeing Alex Zane team up with Lance Archer.
Monster
and
sauce.
Archer's,
Said monster sauce.
Yeah, we'd find out the next evening that these guys are forging a tag team, and they're going to be known as Monster Sauce. But this was the first genesis or iteration of their teaming together. And we haven't seen Alex Zane in quite a while, because he's been dealing with injuries. And so this is his first match this year, actually.
Yeah, they said his first match in 3 or 4 months. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then, on the Archer side of things, it's very interesting because we haven't seen him in New Japan since the demise of Suzuki-gun. And the last time he was here in the country, he was still a member of Suzuki-gun. And so now he's back, and it's sort of like in the kayfabe, well, where are we going to see the Murder Hawk monster sort of align himself? So that question kind of lingers there. And then, finally you got Oiwa, who is still a young lion. And in any other like Road to style show, you would just say to yourself, well, like, it's very obvious what's going to happen here. You got the young lion, you got, the bad guy team on this side, and Oiwa is definitely going to lose. Except this is New Japan Strong, and we've seen lions win against people that you wouldn't expect them to beat on New Japan Strong. So the chances of a win here actually go up exponentially because of the fact that it's not a traditional Road to show. It's New Japan Strong, and the rules change there.
Yeah, I think definitely with the New Japan Strong, it just kind of adds a different level of unpredictability. Because like we've seen, like when Ren Narita first showed up on Strong, beating Filthy Tom Lawler and beating Fred Rosser, and we've seen Young Lions come over and get wins over established veterans on the Strong brand in the U.S. So yeah, it's very possible that Oiwa or just that his team could have gotten a win over Team Filthy, but that was
even the LA Dojo Lions when they first started. Clark Connors and Alex Coughlin and Carl Fredericks, all those guys, they were winning matches against established talent right out the gate.
Yeah. Archer got a huge pop here. The crowd was definitely happy to see him. And also kind of a big pop when him and JR Kratos got in the ring together. Kind of a big monster mash. And man, Kratos, he had a hematoma on his forehead that I guess like swelled up from traveling over to Japan, and then that thing got busted open in the middle of the match, and he was just drenched in blood.
Yeah, we weren't even sure what caused it, but it just exploded, and it looked like a monster movie. It looked like someone took a hatchet to him. Very, very, very graphic, very nasty, and I don't think it was intended whatsoever. But yeah, the interactions between JR Kratos and Lance Archer had Cork and Hulk buzzing. People were really into it. Hard work from all 6 men here. And going back to the thing with Oiwa, ultimately he was the one that ended up losing for his team. But the match structure, they actually gave him a lot more than what you normally see them give to a young lion in a similar, 6-man tag environment on like a Road to show. I don't think that's too surprising, kind of considering the fact that, recently Fujita declared himself as graduated. And so I'm sure that, whatever's next for Oiwa isn't far off in the near future. But ultimately, Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs were able to pick up the win here. But yeah, Jared Kratos was a bloody, bloody mess.
Yeah. Oiwa busted out this cool bridging gut wrench suplex towards the end of the match for a great near fall. Also, we saw a lot of Zayn and Archer's new like double team moves as this new team, where Archer grabbed Zayn in a choke slam and he choke slammed him into a moonsault onto JR Kratos. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, they fucking rule. We're gonna talk more about them the next night. That this should have been the first indication. Honestly, I didn't look too closely at these cards before I watched them, so maybe there should have been an indication that this was leading to them teaming, being an established team the next night. But sometimes we see guys like this do, just short-term teams for like a little tour, and that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
But come to find out the next night, they plan to continue on with these guys, and they've got some pretty cool offense. Also, how did we ever believe that Alex Zane is a junior? He's almost the same size as Lance Archer.
Oh,
like
man.
Literally, it's weird.
Yeah, they keep saying, "Oh yeah, Zayn's close on the weight limit for." I'm like,
He's
no,
not on the weight limit.
that man be eating the beef gorditas and the Baja Blast. That man's a heavyweight.
This dude's an undisputed heavyweight. Like he's bigger than almost everybody. That's like he's not a junior. It's preposterous.
Oh man. So next matchup we had filthy Tom Lawler defeating Kosei Fujita 8 minutes and 59 seconds.
Tom Lawler is a man after my own heart. I know that there have been controversies in this country, Jeremy. I know that the American flag doesn't mean the same thing to everybody in this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get that. There's resentments, but I hold a soft spot in my heart for any gentleman that wears the red, white, and blue flag trunks. I just do. And it has to do with 1990s and 1980s propaganda. I think it started with Rocky III and Apollo Creed and then Rocky Balboa, but then it continued on, Don Fry, okay, Butterbean, some of the greatest legends of fighting all donned the red, white, and the blue.
Lex
the Patriot,
Luger.
Lex Luger, that's another one. Lex Luger, the Patriot. I mean, these are some of the greatest performers that we've ever known. Kurt Angle, So
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
He never wore the red, white, and the blue. He wore the closest I think he ever got was to where he had the stars on the singlet when he had the blue singlet.
Mm.
But he did come out with the
flag,
with Old Glory. But we saw Tom Lawler. He foregoed the blue cutoff jean look, and instead he donned the red, white. Oh, Rex from Rex Kwon Do.
Oh yeah. Break the wrist and walk away.
Break the wrist and walk away. Not your wrist. No, the other wrist. The other wrist. So yeah, Tom Lawler came out red, white, and blue gear, donned the red, white, and blue, and it was pretty sick. And he took Fujita to school, man.
Yeah, he did. I felt bad for Tom. He was supposed to have a match at Forbidden Door against Adam Cole, but Adam Cole had a fever, couldn't compete. And he was having travel issues with Delta. He almost couldn't get to Japan, but luckily he was able to make it to Japan. And had a great showing here with Fujita, and really just kind of showed off all his skills.
He beat Fuego del Sol?
I mean our Serpentico.
Same guy.
In the dark match.
He beat a jobber from AEW who wears a mask. They're the same guy. Whatever.
But yeah, Tom looked really good here in this match. And really just kind of displayed, his technical wrestling, his submission style, and looked really good in this match. And Vegeta's was the first time that he came out to the TMDK music by himself. Usually, if he's by himself, he still comes out with the Young Lion music, but so he came out with the TMDK music, had a shirt, his nameplate finally said the TMDK logo instead of the lion mark, so maybe this man really has graduated.
I suppose so. Yeah, Tom looked great. Fujita, definitely also very much into the mat-based grappling style ever since he started working under the tutelage of Zack Sabre Jr. And, last year there was that, kind of ongoing feud between Tom Lawler and Zack Sabre Jr., sort of not just revolving around their technical acumen, but also around who was the better pop artist, Boy George or George Michael. So this kind of was a little bit of an extension of that feud.
Yeah, they also had the TV title match this year also.
Did that already happen or that's upcoming?
That already happened.
When did that happen? Because I don't know that did I see that match?
It was, I think it was on one of the Strong pay-per-views this year.
Man, I don't remember that match.
Or it might have been on ROH, but I think it was a Strong pay-per-view.
It very well might have been. I just don't remember it. But, Tom Lawler was the longtime Strong Openweight champion, one of the most dominant champions in New Japan. And currently, Zach is one of the most, dominant champions going today. So I'd love for those two guys to lock up once again.
Yeah, it was a Capital Collision in April.
Bro, I don't remember that match. But one thing that I saw Tom Lawler do here that I really loved, he has a variation of the figure four where he locks into he doesn't use his legs to lock into the figure four necessarily, but he kind of uses like an S grip under, and it's kind of hard to describe on audio, but he's utilizing his arms to get into the figure four along with, wrapping his legs around the guy. Mm-hmm. And very, very, very cool. But ultimately, he was able to defeat Kosei Fujita via submission.
Yeah, he did hit a Kamigoye, and then he hit the
that's right. It wasn't submission. He knocked him out.
Yeah, Kamigoye.
Nasty knee on the brain.
Yeah, the nasty on the brain with the reverse Kamigoye, and I got the pin.
Yeah, I love that finish because Fujita was in the nasty knee on the brain position, and then he rolled out of it and flipped him over, and inadvertently ended up in the Kamigoye position and got basically just laid out. And then he hit him the reverse way and then beat him, which was a pretty cool finish.
Yeah. So then after that, we had Eddie Kingston and our good friend Rocky Romero defeating Gato and Kenta. So this was a preview match for the next night's Strong Openweight title match between Eddie Kingston and Kenta.
Yeah, the story here being that Eddie Kingston has always adored Japanese-style wrestling, namely New Japan as well as All Japan, and has worked and toiled for years and years to get to Japan. And while he has been in Japan before, the last time was I think they said 12 years ago, and it was working for Osaka Pro, which is a smaller indie. Mm-hmm. And he's never worked in Cork and Hall before. So finally made it to the hallowed grounds of Cork and Hall. He was here. And like you mentioned, preview match for the title match he'd have with Kenta the next evening. And ultimately he was able to put away Geto with the back fist. I don't know what he calls that back fist.
Yeah, isn't it the Yuriken?
Yeah, the Yuriken. And knocked him out, got the 1, 2, 3. And high emotions for Eddie, and the crowd was very much into him. And they were also glad to have Rocky back, who is still currently, after last week's CMLL Fantastica Mania, the world historic welterweight champion. I did not expect him to retain his title, but he's still champion.
Yeah, everybody that was, yes, this is where Volador's going to get the belt back. But no, our good friend Rocky.
Fuck you, Volador.
We ride. Oh, man. So big win there for Eddie and Rocky.
Does Rocky know he needs to come on the show for episode 300?
No, but I should hit him up because we're only a few weeks. This week is episode 292, so we're only 8 episodes away from episode 300. And as tradition, every 100 episodes we have
every 100 episodes
we have Rocky on here. So yeah, I'll hit him.
Rocky
up.
Romero comes out, and if he sees his shadow, then 100 more episodes of Keepin It Strong Style.
So Rocky, if you're listening, we got to book you, pal, get you on here for episode 300 of KISS. So yeah, they got the win here. The next match, we had another preview match here as Momo Kogo and the Strong Women's Champion Willow Nightingale defeating the Mafia Bella, which is a team of Julia and Thekla from Stardom. And the next night, Willow and would be defending her Strong Women's title against Julia.
Very, very fun match. Very good preview. It was a little short. I mean, they went just under 10 minutes, but they're working such a frantic pace. I felt like the match was maybe deserved a little bit more time because they were doing some really cool stuff. I loved the double team moves from Momokogo and Willow Nightingale. Some really cool stuff there. And ultimately, Willow was able to get the Dr. Bomb on Tekla and pick up the 1-2-3.
Yeah, I mean, Willow is almost kind of like the female version of like a big kind of bruiser foreigner coming in. Like the way she delivers those lariats and just overpowers, a lot of the Japanese competitors. And yeah, I thought she looked really good here in this preview match, and her and Julia had some good stuff there. And I thought Tekla looked pretty good as well. So yeah, fun matchup.
Yeah, as far as, and I guess we'll talk a little bit more about Willow Nightingale, but since you brought it up, I love her work when granted, I haven't seen any of the work in Ring of Honor, and I've heard she's had some very good matches over there. But by and large, I haven't really been super keen on some of the work I've seen in AEW from her. And I don't know if it has something to do with like the match layouts or the structure or what have you, but I mean, she's definitely very popular and very over there, but she's not super imposing or physical.
Mm-hmm.
But in New Japan, she's been highly physical, and it's been very impressive, and I'm a pretty big fan of it. And I'd go as far as to say, like, when you talk about some of the more well-known like power women wrestlers that are out there today, and granted, I'm no expert on Joshi, so I know that there are some that exist that I'm just not that familiar with. But, talking about like more like Western wrestling, you think of like your Nia Jax's or what's her face? What or like Nyla? What's her name?
Nyla Rose.
Like Nyla Rose.
Awesome Kong.
Well, I wouldn't say Awesome Kong. I'm thinking more like modern times, just like who's out there right now. Those two women, and then maybe like Jimmy Snuka's daughter, Tamina. Those are all women that, like, in my opinion, should work the way that Willow Nightingale works. Like she's very much like a throwback to like an Awesome Kong or an Aja Kong or like a Monster Ripper. Some of these like more physical, imposing, powerful women. That's the kind of work she's putting in, and like I'm here for it, man.
Yeah, it's been great. So then following that, we had the first championship match of the evening. NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team titles on the line. The Bullet Club War Dogs team of Alex Coughlin and Gabe Kidd defeated Bishamon, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi to become the new Strong Openweight Tag Team champions.
First thing I'd like to say, the heat in the building for the Bullet Club today, specifically this brand of Bullet Club War Dogs, is the kind of heat that people said the House of Torture would have once Tyrion came back to pro wrestling. But these guys don't do any of that shit. They don't,
Dude, they just come out here and kick ass. And
they come out here and kick ass, but they not only are they kicking ass, but like they act like wild men before the match starts, and they are heels. They are doing everything in their power to be as hated as they possibly can be. They are not cool heels.
No.
They are down, dirty throwback.
Yeah, coming out in the crowd, throwing chairs as they enter, giving the one finger salute to everybody, just yelling, cursing, screaming, it's
awesome. And the crowd is not liking it. They're booing them, and it's not a fun boo. It's a real boo. They're like, fuck these guys.
You betrayed Shinihon.
Yeah, you turned on the LA Dojo. But this match, we didn't get to do a preview. This is one of the things, there were some surprises on these two shows I didn't expect, but this was not one of them. Once they had mentioned that they were doing the same tag match back to back for each title, it became very apparent that they were splitting the belts again. And the first night being the strong belts, you knew right away that the younger, less established team is going to pick up the less prestigious titles. And then go on to fail to obtain the IWGP titles the second night. And that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, these guys just wild men coming in here, attacking before the bell, hitting these guys with the belts, and making the ref ring the bell. And so they got a hot start here. And then just throughout the match, they were just bulldozing these guys. Yoshihashi was the main victim here. Like they pretty much isolated him, and there's a lot of great double team maneuvers on him. Goto would get back in for some hope spots and near falls and try to get a little bit momentum back, but really, it was all War Dogs here, and Yoshihashi got back in there, and they just went to work on him, and they hit the double choke slam, and then the spiking tombstone pile driver on Yoshihashi to get the win here.
Now, the commentary did mention how, even though, like you mentioned, the War Dogs were very much on the offensive and in control a lot of the match, they still weren't as cohesive a team as you'd expect from two guys that were winning a title on that evening. Mm-hmm. There were still like a lot of holes in their games, and those kind of created those opportunities for Goto to come in with the hope spots and for Yoshihashi to have comebacks and things like that. So even though they did pick up the win here, at the end of the day, it kind of showed that they weren't as cohesive a team as Bishamon, who've been teaming together for quite a bit longer. And they were sort of already setting the stage on commentary for, basically that, like, hey, even though they were dominant tonight and they're going to grow and they won the belts, Bishamon are probably going to come back the next night and expose some of those holes in their game.
Yeah. And then also, too, I think just from the other side of things, like, they beat them once, so it's like, all right, maybe there's actually a possibility that the War Dogs could win the next night because they've kind of beaten and battered Bishamon. So even though there are holes in the game, Bishamon's coming in a little bit weaker. Potentially, they could beat those guys again.
They also continued to beat on Yoshihashi after the bell, after they'd won the titles, and that was kind of like adding insult to injury. They sent in a show sponsor to give the belts to the War Dogs.
Yeah, the LAC sponsor, yeah.
And they were like, is this a good idea? And then, those guys cut a very short and sweet promo. And, I love where Alex Coughlin is like, Goto Yoshihashi, fuck you.
Yeah, and he had a great post-match promo, too. And he's just like, all these years in the dojo doing all these squats, like, waste of time.
That's why I don't do squats, bro. No, I'm just playing. Yeah, and then so the next match of the evening, the semi-main event, we had the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles on the line as the defending champions Catch 2-2 of the United Empire defended against the Bullet Club War Dog junior team of Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney. And to my surprise, Jeremy, the Bullet Club War Dogs picked up more gold on this evening and dethroned Catch 2-2, which once it happened, I wasn't necessarily shocked, but I don't know if we'd done a preview if I would have called this.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Bullet Club War Dogs are getting the hot push right now. They're the hot act, but yeah, with Catch 2-2 being an established team and just getting the belts back from the Intergalactic Jet Setters, it might have seemed like, Catch 2-2, they're more established. They're going to kind of beat this newer team, and then maybe down the line, Maloney and Connors could beat them. But no, they went with the kind of surprising finish here with Connors and Drilla Maloney. No, they've only teamed up like 2 or 3 times and were able to kind of run through Catch 2-2.
I mean, it's the junior tag team titles, and while there has been more stability to this division for a little while now, you can never discount the idea of Gedo just going back to Old Faithful and bouncing those belts around the various different teams like he's prone to do, and that's what we saw here. They did a great job on commentary, though, kind of explaining how Drilla Maloney was originally, one of the third juniors on the United Empire team. He was kind of teamed up with the Catch 2-2 guys and recently had turned his back on them, joined Bull Club War Dogs after him and Clark Connors found common ground and Gato was able to persuade him to turn on those guys. And one thing that they really harped on during the commentary was like in the match previously, the heavyweight tag team, lots of non-cohesion, miscommunication. Clark Connors and Drill Maloney, none of that was to be seen. They looked like they'd been teaming together for
years. Yeah,
for years. They were extremely competent. This match was actually, up until the main event, I thought the match of the night. Just another in a long string of fantastic title matches from Catch 22.
Mm-hmm.
And Clark Connors and Drill Maloney looked like they belonged there. In fact, this might be the best I've seen Clark Connors look in a New Japan ring. And I love the finish that Drill Maloney and Clark Connors have now, where Drilla puts them up in a vertical suplex position, and then Clark jumps off the top ropes and spears them out of midair.
Yeah.
Bro, that's fucking incredible.
That's great. And like you mentioned too, with the other Bullet Club team, tons of heat here for this team as well. And the match started off heated. These guys were pushing each other in the face, and then it started off hot there. Wild brawl and they were brawled all into the crowd in Corkin, and then Akira went up. He did the big crossbody off the tunnel there to those guys, and so this was a wild, heated brawl before it got back into the ring, and we got some high pace, junior action there as well. And you mentioned the great finish there from Drilla Maloney and Clark Connors there, the combo suplex spear puts these guys away, and they become the new junior tag team champions.
Yeah, and I wasn't, I didn't know that was their finisher, so I wasn't really expecting them to get the pinfall off of that, even though I thought the move was awesome. And I was like, oh shit, that's their finish. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
we got new champs, and the crowd was stunned. They were very quiet once this happened. They kind of reacted more in the previous match a little bit, but this one they were like kind of just dead quiet.
Well, it was like a double deflation for them. It's like, all right, they just watched Bishamon get beat, and it's like, all right, well, maybe Catch 2-2 will win here. And then no, they lost 2, and like it was like, oh wow. It was just kind of hush, like, man, these guys are, they're the real deal, and they just like mowed over 2 of our favorite teams here.
Yeah. And one other thing I want to kind of point out here is, even though, yes, this was the IWGP titles, like during the course of these shows, they did a fantastic job sort of elevating not just the Strong brand, but also the relevancy of the Strong titles, because they meant a lot on Strong when they were over in America, when Strong was like a weekly, television show, but they haven't necessarily felt that way since they moved away from that format. But on these shows, like, the Strong titles in particular felt like big deals, which, it just hasn't always been that way.
Yeah. I had a couple questions here. First from Heavenly Halberd from the Discord. It says, of the new Bullet Club edition, who seems the most comfortable in their new role, in your opinion?
You know what, man? I mean, I wouldn't really, far be it from me to like give them a ranking or anything. I don't think that any of them feel out of place. They all feel like they've always been heels. And in fact, I would go as far as to say all 4 guys so far. And you know what? We could even throw this into like, Finley as well. They all feel like they really are this way.
Yeah. I agree with you, but if I had to pick just one guy who I think was like the most comfortable, I would say Gabriel Kidd. Like, I feel like just his smack talk and just like you mentioned, like, I feel like the way he is right now is like him turned up to 10, like unleashed, unfiltered, unhinged. And like, I feel like a heel run for him was just definitely the right call. And I think he's really running with it.
Yeah, definitely. But that's going to take us to our main event.
One more question here from the Discord daddy, MJ does PR. He says, Catch 2-2.
MJ taking up more time. No, I'm just playing.
He says, Catch 2-2 Tag Team of the Year. Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Ooh, I mean, earlier in the year, I would have definitely said Aussie Open, but they're not here any longer. And that just, I think their argument is going to get, weaker and weaker as time goes on. And I think Catch 22 has a very strong, compelling case to be tag team of the year. And probably the last time a junior team really felt like they had a very strong case for being tag team of the year was probably the era of the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I loved Roppongi 3K, they always seem to kind of be overshined by other teams at the same time. And yeah, but Catch 22 doesn't feel like they have a heavyweight counterpart to kind of beat them right now.
Yeah, I mean, you could throw Bishamon out there, and they've been really good.
Bishamon has I guess you're right. Bishamon does have an argument.
Yeah, they've been really steady this year, but I feel like, I think to me, I feel like Catch 22 has peaked higher in their matches than Bishamon.
Maybe. We'll have to look at those scores at the end of the year. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. So that takes us to the main event. We had the Doomsday no disqualification tag team match. El Desperado and Jun Kasai defeat the notorious 187 Homicide and the Death Rider John Moxley.
When you look at the history of professional wrestling and you look at the date July 4th, July 4th has never necessarily been a major, like standout time for professional wrestling. The same way, not the way that, like, say, Thanksgiving has in the past and some other holidays. There have always been like 4th of July themed shows at various times, but very rarely do those shows actually take place on July 4th. That being said, there are a handful of really famous matches that kind of fill the annals of professional wrestling. You can look at, like, say, the Freebirds versus actually they're in 83 as well as 84, the Freebirds versus the Von Erichs. The first one was the 2 out of 3 falls match. The next year was the no DQ match that got 5 stars from Dave. And then, a little bit after that, you can look at the first War Games match at Great American Bash in 1987. And then after that, there's not that many really well-known, big, great matches that occurred on that date. I think that this tag team match very easily fits just as much as any other great match, including the first ever War Games match, including the very famous no DQ match from between the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. And for my money, I'm not going to say this was the best match of the 2-day event, but it was easily the most violent.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. And before we get into talking about the stuff in the match, MJWPR asked, can the young boy give us a brief history of death matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Oh. I'm not prepared for this. Okay, so, New Japan, in the early days of New Japan, there were what some people would kind of classify as quote unquote death matches, but they wouldn't be like death matches by like the same standard as you're used to from today. Like, and some of them I've actually never seen tape of. Like, most of the famous ones, they're going to be Inoki matches. And I know that Inoki had a nail board match where on the outsides of the ring, they put boards with nails. But really, realistically, in those types of matches, the guys didn't take big bumps into the nails. They were kind of there as like a way to keep the action in the ring so that they didn't go out into the floor too much. And if they did, usually they avoided the nail beds. And what would happen is like the heel would like kind of rake, the baby face's face across the nails on the floor. They didn't take bumps into the nails, really. I know that exists. I don't think I've ever seen tape of it. I also I've seen that there was a fence match that I've never seen the tape of it, but there's a fence match, which I think is like an early precursor to the steel cage match. But like IWE, which was in the 70s, the third big, Japanese promotion, they were much more well known for doing the steel cage matches. Like Rusher Kimura was the, very well known for doing the steel cage death matches, and New Japan didn't really do those too much. But as time moved on, in like the 80s, you had like the island death match that Inoki did with oh god, what's his name? Masa Saito.
Mhm.
And then in the early 90s, they did another one of those with God, I'm not prepared for all Tiger Jeet Singh versus man, what's his name? What's his name? Who's the dude that was in the Muta scale match with the great Muta? Hiroshi Hase. Him and Hase, they did another island death match that exists, but where the death matches really started to peak was in the mid to late 90s when Onita came over and he started doing the crazy spectacle exploding barbed wire time bomb death matches. And he had one with Chono and he had one with Great Muta. And then beyond that, there's not too many other crazy death matches. I mean, there's a few gimmick matches here and there that have existed in Japan, in New Japan in particular. But a lot of them are kind of similar to like the Texas death match that Archer and
Moxley.
Moxley did at Wrestle Kingdom. Like, I know Makabe's done a few. I know Tenzan's done a few. I know who's the guy that used to walk around with the iron claw?
Iska.
Yeah, Isaka has done a few, and most of those they've done like chain matches. They've also done like, matches where it's like knockout submission only, and they how they'll have certain matches that have a weird title.
Yeah,
they've had a few of those at like Wrestle Kingdoms and stuff like that, but we're talking very few like true blue death matches. The plunder matches that we've been seeing in New Japan Strong over the past 3 years are much more like clearly death match oriented than what we've seen in New Japan. And then last year's match between Desperado and John Moxley in Nashville was the first true death match in a really long time in New Japan. Oh, you know who else has done some gimmick stuff is like Yano and there were some strap matches that Suzuki's done.
Yeah.
So, but not too many. Like realistically, and there were a couple cage matches. We watched that cage match with Chono and Takayama.
Yeah.
And then there was the one with Murakami and Tanahashi. So this stuff does exist, but it's very few and far between. And in Japan, especially in New Japan, they'll take a regular match and then just throw the title death match on it. But it doesn't necessarily fit the same definition that we in the West know as a death match. The only real quote unquote death matches that have existed were realistically like the Onita matches. And those were like, an invader guy coming in and having a few big spectacle matches and usually got his ass kicked because he's an FMW guy.
Yeah.
But this stuff that John Moxley and Desperado have been introducing is way, way more over the top than anything we've ever seen in New Japan ever. They've never had matches with forks and blades and barbed wire like that. This stuff has never been in New Japan before, realistically.
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about this match. You mentioned it. Yeah, Jun Kasai, he comes out here. First of all, huge, amazing pop for this guy. His music hits and the crowd, they're on their feet. They're going wild. They're singing his song, chanting his name, Kasai, Kasai. He comes out, this huge board full of forks sticking out of the board. Desperado comes out. His mask's already ripped. He's got the guitar and the roses. John Moxley's out there. Homicide, they got all their gimmick weapons too. And, the barbed wire, the butcher blade, like you mentioned. These guys were throwing out all the gimmicks here. It was wild.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd was definitely glad to see all four men, and they were very hot for the matchup. But like you mentioned, Jun Kasai was the biggest star of the evening. He got the biggest reactions, which I wasn't necessarily. I mean, I know he's a big, he's very popular over there, but I just didn't anticipate on this evening that it would be such a big turnout for him specifically, which kind of showed me that that a lot of the crowd that was there for him specifically. I do know that he had his family there, and for him, one reason I think they went all out during this match was because he's never worked for a major national Japanese wrestling promotion like New Japan before. So him making his debut in New Japan was like, after all these years toiling on the indies and working internationally, like a huge deal for him. And I think it was a huge deal for the fans in attendance as well.
Yeah, putting him on that big, New Japan stage and bringing his style of match. He does all these death matches, and he said in the pre-match when Desperado asked him to be his partner, he's like, "I'll be your partner if we can do my style of match that it's never been done in New Japan before. So I hope I can do it." And they definitely did it here with this Doomsday no DQ tag match. Man, I flinched when they were doing the spots on the forks, man.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I don't know. I can't really relate. I've never been body slammed on a fork or a bed of forks, but I was like, God, how do you know that that's not going to go into somebody or whatever? Like, you're taking a chance, but whatever.
I mean, how do you work that? Like, you can't really gimmick forks. Like,
you just take it. I don't know. This match was crazy. I did see some people balking at the idea of these matches, and I saw some pro elitist type individuals talking about how they've been turned off from, the death match style. I even seen some people citing AEW as being a reason why they don't want to see the stuff. Like, bro, let me tell you something. They're not doing this shit in AEW. This is the kind of stuff you only see like in the sleazy underground indies, like like a GCW or a CZW, or you see it in like Freedoms. Like,
yeah,
you never see this in a New Japan ring.
Right. Yeah.
This was crazy shit.
Yeah, Jun Kasai had the big barber razor and was cutting Homicide's head, and Homicide backbite dropped him on the forks. Moxley slammed Desperado on the forks. The crowd was really into it. Lots of chants are out, and then these guys are just trading blows. I didn't think it was pretty funny. Like, one point in the match, they got in the corners and were doing like tags after they'd
already been doing
like tornado style for like 10 minutes. They got on the car.
I never picked up on that, but that is funny. They were doing a tornado style match the whole time. There was never a legal man, and then they're tagging each other. Like, why?
Yeah. So yeah,
that's so funny.
These guys were running wild. Then
Moxley got bust open bad, and I don't know if that was because he already. I know the next night he pretty much had that same wound glued up. Did he come into that match with that wound, or did he get it during the match? I'm not even sure.
His head might have been already, because he bleeds every week, so his head must have already been jacked up, and then got.
It could have been. It might. I mean, this match was really violent, so it's possible. But yeah, all these guys got color. It was really nuts. And then Homicide is a guy who in recent years, he's had some good matches. He works hard, but you could tell he's not quite what he used to be athletically. But you put him in this environment, he doesn't need to be a technical marvel, because he can just go out there and like lay waste to people, and that's what he was doing. And Jun Kasai is very much the same way, and they even had some high spots. Like, they did crazy shit here.
Yeah, you had the board with the razors on it. Moxley drop kicked Kasai into that, cut his back all up. Yeah, these guys were just doing a lot of just wild and crazy. Homicide had the chains out. He was whipping the guys with the chains, that garbage cans, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about the main event from the next night, and it was, in my opinion, equally as great, maybe even better. But it wasn't as violent as this one was. And you kind of almost have to wonder if like they couldn't top this because it was like such a spectacle.
Yeah.
And also, in the kayfabe, like they'd already been through a huge war the night prior. That probably played a little bit of a role into the psychology. But man, like, this fucking ruled. If you haven't seen it,
yeah,
it's not for the faint of heart, but it was awesome.
Yeah, of course, there's the skewers out there, and
the skewers,
bashing the skewers in Moxley's head, and Yeah, then pretty much it was kind of a beat down on Homicide towards the end there. Desperado was able to hit the Pinche Loco and get the pin on Homicide.
Double Pinche Loco. The second one, he put him through the trash cans.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So, man.
Just awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy matchup. And they get on the mic, cut the closing show promo. And yeah, just an awesome way to end the night here.
Nice. So we jump into July 5th, the following evening. Slightly larger crowd, but not by much. Ian Riccaboni and Chris Charlton on the call. We had a pre-show 6-man tag team match where Master Wato, Oleg Bolton, and Ryosuke Taguchi took on Dragon Libre, Rekka, and Takahiro Katori. Very much similar to the same antics that we'd seen the night prior. A lot of the match kind of revolving around the stuffed animal once again. The only difference here was the Freedoms team eventually procured the stuffed animal and saved him, and were able to get him away from the filthy Hantai team. But ultimately, the Hantai team were successful in this endeavor. They won the match. I don't remember how, but they did.
Yeah, again, very similar to, like you mentioned, to the opening match from night one. Fun opener, getting the crowd just kind of, ready for some action.
One thing I did want to say, Wato is still coming out here with the flag and the fucking
trophy.
Best of the Super Juniors trophy, right?
Yeah.
I know that I'm not like a quote unquote, like a real pro wrestler, right? But sometimes I think about what these guys should be doing and like, what's the best thing that you could possibly do if you were the Best of the Super Junior winner, but then you lost your title shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be to continue to come out with that, or would it be to get rid of the title or the trophy? Because, I mean, ultimately you did win the Super Juniors. You want people to know that that's a big accomplishment, but you also didn't win your title challenge. So you're in this kind of weird predicament. What you got to do there, Jeremy, if you want it to matter, is you need to cut an emboldened promo telling people why you don't deserve to carry that trophy until you win that title. And you like make your intentions known that you're putting the trophy away so you can put your attention and focus on the title, and then give yourself a storyline reason and make it important why you're not, carrying the trophy anymore. But they're not doing that. They just got the guy walking out there with the trophy still, and it's like he looks like a geek again. and the whole point of winning the tournament is to make him a star. He was in a 5-star match in the finals, and everyone's forgot about it because
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that time match is so soon. Maybe they could have held it off to give him some time to come out with it, but yeah, it's not a good look.
Ultimately, as a wrestler, you need to be thinking of the best course of action to get yourself over. And if you're going to lose, you need to find a way to get your heat back on the way down. And continuing to carry that fucking trophy out there is just a reminder of your failure.
Yeah.
So cut a promo about it and let the people know what your intentions are and move forward as a character. Like, don't just keep carrying the shit out. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyways, to start the evening off, earlier the previous night, they had advertised that Oscar Luebe would be facing off against Jared Kratos in singles action. As we mentioned on the review of the previous night, he had that hematoma. It opened up. Ultimately, the medical staff deemed him unfit to compete in action the following evening. So Oscar Luebe had a mystery opponent, which ended up being Satoshi Kojima.
That's right. The leader of the Bread Club, the strongest arm, Satoshi Kojima, coming in for the save once again. And this was quick 5-minute Young Lion versus New Japan Dad opener. Oscar Luebe got to, fire up, kind of show his fighting spirit. But at the end of the day, he ate a big lariat, a big strong arm, and Kojima got the win here.
Yep. Fun match, 5 minutes, 23 seconds. We move on to tag team action as the former junior champions Catch 2 were in action, and they defeated the team of Homicide and Ryohei Oiwa 12 minutes and 9 seconds.
So yeah, another fast-paced, fun matchup here. So Catch 2 coming out of the loss to Connors and Maloney the previous night, trying to get back some momentum here, trying to get back in contention for the titles. They did tease on commentary if Homicide and Oiwa won, they could potentially, challenge the junior tag team titles. And again, with being New Japan Strong and Homicide being on the team, there was this kind of, sense of doubt. Maybe that team could win and be the next challengers for Connors and Maloney.
Bro, Homicide, former world NWA junior heavyweight champion.
Yeah, former Ring of Honor world champion.
Junior.
But it's a really fun matchup here. Also, like you mentioned, Homicide's this is not 05, 06 Homicide.
Yeah, but he was busting out some of the technical catch stylings, which you didn't necessarily expect after the evening that he had the previous match.
Yeah,
before this
did hit a nice T-bone on TJP. He busted out the Eddie Guerrero Three Amigos suplexes as well. So really good stuff there. But of course, came on to the end there. Oiwa gets back in, hits that great gut wrench suplex for the near fall. Homicide gets TJP tied up in the STF. Homicide starts bleeding from his cut he had from the previous night. And then Catch 2, they hit their double team X Factor face plant on Oiwa, and then they hit the knee, double knees, and TJP pins Oiwa to get the win.
Following the match, there was a lot of allusions on commentary to the fact that TJP and Homicide had come up on the indies together and known each other from, TJP spending time in the original LA dojo and that sort of thing. And I don't know if you caught this, Jeremy, but Francesco Akira and TJP paid him respect. They bowed to him and kind of gave him honor. And that's not necessarily something you'd expect from a heelish junior tag team like Catch 2. So something tells me that, with them being on the opposite side of Bullet Club War Dogs, they're kind of in a quasi-tweener kind of face-leaning role now.
Yeah. And I feel like United Empire has been kind of leaning that way beginning of this year with Ospreay facing Kenny and Kenny being more of the heel in the beginning of the feud. And since then, these guys, they haven't really been super heel because they've been feuding with Bullet Club and TMDK. And so they've kind of been this kind of tweener-ish for this year.
They vacillate. You know what I mean? Like, they come and go because after Wrestle Kingdom, they were trying to get their heat back and were, working heel in that New Beginning tour. But I also think it depends on which facet of the group we're talking about because Jeff Cobb and Master
Great O'Khan
and Great O'Khan, they clearly work heel most of the time. And then Catch 2 were definitely working heel up until this past tour. But then it kind of depends, Aussie Open weren't really working heel. And, it kind of just depends on which members are doing what at different points of the year.
Yeah. So,
we ended up the next match of the evening. We had the rematch between the new strong openweight tag team champions as the Bullet Club War Dogs, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney. Oh, my bad. I'm reading the wrong thing. The new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney. They were set to take on the Chaos team of Rocky Romero and Yo, former members of Roppongi 3K. And before this match started, Rocky Romero and Yo got on the mic and basically talked about how, congratulations, you guys won the junior tag team titles, but he pointed out that Yo has held the junior tag team titles 5 times and Rocky Romero has held the titles 8 separate times. And he was like, I kind of feel like we got some, we're a little bit long in the tooth when it comes to this sort of thing. And maybe you guys should just give us a title shot right here, right now. And at first, Bullet Club War Dogs seemed like they didn't want to do it.
Like, nah. Maloney's I was drinking too much last night.
And then like Chairman Sugabayashi's down there and like Rocky's trying to be like title shot. And like he's like looking really confused. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And then eventually he like goads them into accepting it. And like they were like, fuck it, let's just do it. And it's like, all right, suddenly we have a title shot out of nowhere.
Yeah, so fun tag team matchup here. Man, the team of Maloney and Connors, man, they work so well together with this being, only teaming for such a handful of times. And they did a great job here, really, dominating Yo and Romero here. I mean, Rocky and Yo got some spots in, but I feel like they were getting overpowered by Maloney and Connors throughout this match, and once again were able to hit that big suplex spear combo for the pin.
Yeah. Roppongi 3K forever? I guess not. But yeah, this was very, very good. Not as good as the previous night's title match, but we didn't expect to get 2 junior tag team title matches on, subsequent nights back to back. So that was really, really cool and kind of, went a long way to establish Book Labor Dogs as like the preeminent champions now. So yeah. Next match of the evening, we had Alex Zane and Lance Archer. They took on the TMDK team of Bad Dude Tito and Kosei Fujita, and they picked up the victory at 9 minutes and 31 seconds. Following this match, Alex Zane and Lance Archer got on the mic, and they announced short and sweet, we are now Murder Sauce, and we will be back. And I was like, holy fuck, like this team rules.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, put them against Bishamon, put them against War Dogs. Like, these guys need to be in tag team title matches. Again, just some great double team combos here. Crowd, popped huge once again for Archer coming out, and also for Zane. We remember last year's Super Junior Tour, Alex Zane got extremely over with the Japanese audience, so they're definitely into him and Archer teaming up here together. And once again, kind of the creative offense between Zane and Archer, or Archer doing the choke slam moonsault for Zane onto Vegeta, and doing a lot of spots, kind of throwing Zane into his opponents. And Bad Dude Tito, he was trying to prove that he was as strong as Archer and trying to have some showdowns with him. But wasn't working out too well for Bad Dude Tito, especially with the separated shoulder. A black hole slam from Archer at one point in the match, and Zane hits the forward roll kick to Vegeta, and then Archer hits him with a huge lariat. 1, 2, 3, Monster Sauce, Murder Sauce. They get the win here.
Yeah, this team really blew me away. They do a lot of really cool, innovative stuff, and like obviously, Lance Archer is known for doing a lot of highly athletic big spots for a monster wrestler of his, stature. But then once you see Alex Zane next to him, and I'm sure he's probably put on a little bit of size in the interim since like say last year's Super Juniors, but he's not that far off in size from Lance Archer. And then you're like, dang, this guy's doing some really insane and incredible, high flying stuff too. And they've got the size as well as the high flying stuff going. And, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say they're as good of a team as Aussie Open, because that's kind of crazy. But like, we talked about how Aussie Open was a team that very much like kind of had size, but also athleticism, sort of in the same vein as like, like War Machine from the past. Well, this like Murder Sauce team could very well. I don't know if I'm not in love with that name, to be honest with you. It screams WWE. We're gonna just
mash your nicknames together.
Yeah, mash the nicknames together, whatever. But putting that aside, the actual work, they are very imposing and very impressive as a team. They can do a lot of really cool and inventive stuff, and it's very fun and exciting. And I think it's a great way for a guy like Alex Zane, who we've talked about it before. He's over. The Japanese audience like him. The office likes him, but I don't know if they see him as someone that can just he's too big for junior, but he's not a known commodity enough to where he can just transition seamlessly to heavyweight. Mm-hmm. And then Lance Archer, he's been known for so long that he kind of needs something to do. The tag team division is very much in his wheelhouse. He's been there a million times before.
Yeah.
This just feels like a great vehicle for both guys to kind of continue to work in Japan. It makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, I also thought Archer was a good tag team wrestler. Also, you had him and Dave Boy Smith together when he was in TNA with Kid Cash. That was a fun tag team there as well. So yeah, I think putting him in a team is a good way to utilize him and his skill set, and pairing him with Alex Zane, that could be a fun team that could show up in World Tag League later this year. And it would be a good way, like you mentioned, to kind of slowly kind of integrate Zane into transitioning into a heavyweight.
Next match of the evening, we had the 6-man tag team match as Team Filthy, Jarrell Nelson, Royce Isaacs, and Tom Lawler. They took on the team of Hiroshi Tanahashi, the DKC, and Tomohiro Ishii. And the Hantai team picked up the win here. 13 minutes and 10 seconds.
So once again, Filthy Tom coming out with the American trunks, and this time Nelson and Isaacs, they had their their USA gear and jackets all decked out. Kratos did join them on the entrance, and he joined commentary for the match with Ian and Charlton. But these guys, doing what Team Filthy does, kind of being goofy heels over the top with their USA gear. So fun 6-man matchup here. Also, we know the history with Ishii and Tanahashi, and Ishii doesn't really want to team Tanahashi, but they've been working really well together as the Never 6-man champions. And if Team Filthy potentially won this match, they could have put themselves into contention for a Never Openweight 6-man title match against Ishii, Tanahashi, and Kazuchika Okada. But that was not the case here. They could not overpower this team of Ishii and Tanahashi and the DKC.
Yeah, they weren't able to beat them. Like you mentioned, they came out in the all red, white, and blue gear. I do want to throw a shout out to Team Filthy, though, because this was the first time Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs have been able to come over as a tag team and really work in Japan. And it's been long overdue, and something that I thought was one of the big benefits of doing these strong shows. Mm-hmm. And you could tell that how hungry that team is. They always have excelled and really worked hard and basically put their best foot forward, but they really did a lot here in this match. And I mean, even Tanahashi, who we've had some things to say in the recent past about where he is physically as far as his health is concerned, but I felt like he was putting in the effort to keep up with their work rate level in this match, and everybody did a great job. It was probably that's one thing I noticed was this matchup would have fit just fine on your standard Road to style tag team match, mm-hmm. but it wasn't worked at that level. You know what I mean? Like this was worked with a lot more importance and precision, and the guys were out there killing themselves to kind of get a look from the office and a look from the crowd. And there was a hunger that was there. And it was kind of refreshing to see it. They weren't just doing the same old hat that you're used to seeing from a Road to match.
Yeah, and I think we've seen this from Team Filthy on a lot of these big, strong shows. Most of the time they're in some kind of, 6-man, 8-man, 10-man tag, multi-man matchup, and it ends up usually being a really fun match because these guys that go out there, they know how to get over. They know their characters, and they go out there and they work really hard and kill it every time they're in these situations. And like you mentioned, these guys are desperate to kind of establish themselves so they can be brought back for like a World Tag League and be an established heavyweight tag team in New Japan. Royce Isaacs, I feel like he's been putting on a ton of muscle mass. He just looks completely jacked up from the last time we've seen him.
One other thing too, and I think we should probably mention it. Different look from Royce Isaacs. He shaved his head, and I think he was probably suffering a little bit there from like hair loss, and he kind of just went full bore and embraced it and shaved off the hair. And as someone who is definitely, I mean, like I'm not going to sit here and be like I'm balding or anything like that, but like I'm getting up there in age, and like so I'm noticing some differences, and I'm doing everything in my power. I mean, I've got a full routine, Jeremy. I mean, like I'm taking pumpkin seed oil. I got DHT blocking shampoo. I'm on the minoxidil. I take biotin. I do everything, right?
Keeping the hair
And
game strong.
I'm trying, but the next thing is like, I'm not going, if it gets to the point where I can't save this head of hair, then I'm going the Jason Statham / Royce Isaacs route, and I'm just going to shave my head entirely, completely bald like Boss Root. But the thing is, when you do that, you have to have an incredible body to overcompensate the lack of hair, like Royce Isaacs. You can't look like a slob and shave your head, because at that point it's negative, and it doesn't cancel each other out. And this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. Okay. This isn't new. This isn't a bit for the show. Like, you know,
this is real life. It's a shoot.
Listen, I work on my physical fitness, right? And I want to have like a great body, and like it hasn't happened yet, but I'm getting there. I'm making progress. But if I lose my hair, brother, I'm getting on the gas. Okay. Let me tell you.
Oh man.
I will be fully on the gas. Trust me. Okay.
You gotta have a hair match before you shave it. Get back in the dojo, in the side dojo. Tell Matt you need to have a hair match.
Yeah. I don't even know if there is a side dojo.
Or the wrestling lab, whatever they're called.
Something. But yeah, he's looking great, and I'm glad that, you know, this man embraced it, because he's looking fantastic. So
yeah. Before the next match, we did have a graphic on the screen that popped up announcing Wrestle Kingdom 18 coming January 4th. What do you think about the logo for this upcoming Wrestle Kingdom? Logo's fine.
It looks like we're just having one night, and I thought it was surprising they decided to announce it on this show in particular, but that's cool. It did make me feel a little old, because, bro, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the first Wrestle Kingdom we reviewed on this show was Wrestle Kingdom 12.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So we're coming up on 6. That's fucking crazy.
Oh man, yeah, we've been doing this for quite some time.
Okay, well, that takes us to the stronger portion of the finale of the show. So starts off with our championship series. We had a singles match between the defending NJPW Strong Women's Champion Willow Nightingale, as she defended her title against Julia of Stardom, and Julia was able to upend Willow Nightingale and take the title off of her 13 minutes and 29 seconds. So we have a new champion here.
Yeah, and with Julia winning the title, that kind of makes you think, you know, what were the plans, you know, coming out of the Willow and Mercedes Moné match from crowning the first Strong Women's Champion. You know, clearly all signs are pointing that Mercedes was going to win that match before getting hurt in the match, and so would we have gotten, Mercedes versus Julia here on this show, and then, you know, will this lead to Julia versus Mercedes down the line? But not to discredit this match, this was a very hard-hitting match, and like we mentioned in the previous match, and you were talking about Willow's wrestling style in Japan, in New Japan, she kind of is able to unleash more of that hard-hitting kind of bruiser style, and we saw that here. And, you know, commentary mentioned, you know, Julia, she's one of the more harder hitting on the Stardom side, and one of the quote unquote stronger women on the Stardom roster. You know, there's not a lot of women that are, you know, that have the size and strength of Willow. So Julia's used to kind of having that power advantage, a striking advantage, and so really being tested here with Willow. And, you know, they were trading shots, and Willow was big spine buster, big lariats. I do feel like there was a little bit of miscommunication between them. I don't know if that was, like, you know, the whole kind of the language barrier, but it kind of seemed that like they weren't quite on the same page at some points in the match. But overall, I mean, very hard hitting, lots of great power moves from both women.
Yeah, I think the general story, and you did a great job there, Jeremy. The general story was that Julia, a lot of her offense, like you mentioned, is power offense based. And I'm not an expert on her wrestling style. I've only seen her wrestle a handful of times, but they mentioned a lot of her signature moves require, you know, their power moves, and she wasn't able to lift Willow Nightingale to do a lot of those moves. So it kind of negated a lot of her offense. And so at that point, Julia was definitely targeting the legs and trying to look for a submission for a lot of this match. And conversely, Willow Nightingale was able to play the power game against Julia, which is something Julia's not used to, being thrown around and kind of manhandled. I think where Willow sort of messed up going down the stretch was she played the striking battle game with Julia, and that probably was her undoing.
Yeah, Julia was slapping the crap out of her.
they both were hitting hard, but just in the kayfabe, it seemed to be that Julia was getting the better of those exchanges. And throughout the match, Willow kept going to the top rope, and they mentioned how, she's not afraid to high fly, and they also mentioned how the top rope was where she was able to kind of hurt Mercedes, quote unquote, and, kind of solidify that victory. And that sort of played against her here because she went for the moonsault. She missed the moonsault. That was a big detriment to her. And then eventually down the stretch, after Julia had kind of softened her up, she was able to start hitting power moves on her. And when she was, they were up on the top rope, she hit her. I don't even know what it was. It was like an arm trap DDT off the top rope.
A butterfly suplex.
Okay. That was pretty crazy. And I didn't feel like Willow's landing was necessarily the best off that. She kind of came down a little harsh.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Julia was able to hit her with the Northern Lights bomb, like the Dangerous Queen, and picked up the 1-2-3 here. And so Julia is the new reigning champion. And Jeremy, I think that this probably opens up a bit of a bigger discussion where it's like, okay, just last year at the end, and we're talking at the end of last year. So just in November, we unveiled a new IWGP Women's title, and we had the whole tournament and everything like that, and everything was rolling. Eventually, that title found its way around the waist of Mercedes Moné, and then she ended up in Stardom and dropped the belt to Mayu Iwatani, who is the current reigning champion. I don't know what's going on with that title. We haven't heard anything about that title since it was dropped to Mayu. And it's kind of an afterthought here in New Japan. And in the meantime, they held this other tournament to try and put the strong title on Mercedes, and it landed on Willow Nightingale. Clearly, that was not the plan. So now they've audibled and they've put this title on Julia. So we've got two New Japan women's titles on Stardom contracted wrestlers at the same time. And I don't know why they both exist to begin with, other than the fact that they were both pretty much generally created for Mercedes Moné, who is not really active in the company currently because she's out injured. And it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about this before, but I mean, I feel like it would have made more sense if Strong was continuing to do the weekly TV tapings to have the create a title and, integrate women into the weekly TV show. But now they're doing these monthly, semi-monthly, big pay-per-view shows. I don't understand why they couldn't just fly whoever the IWGP Women's Champion is over and use that as a title that would be on both shows. Because initially they said that the whole purpose of the IWGP Women's title was to have more women's matches in America and Japan. And that title was supposed to be kind of bouncing back and forth. And now we have this strong women's title. So yeah, I don't really understand exactly what the difference is, what the game plan is going to be. I do know for Julia, she has been saying a lot in interviews that she wants to wrestle internationally. So she sees this win and this title as her ticket to come to America and do more stuff, which is cool. And we know that there will be more, New Japan America shows happening this summer and probably going into the fall. So we'll probably see Julia here in the States pretty soon. But then again, kind of, what's happening with Mayu. That title, it wasn't defended at Dominion, which was the last, really big New Japan show. And
right,
we're going into G1 season. We're not going to, I doubt we're going to see that, for the next couple of months. So yeah, what exactly is the game plan with these titles?
It feels like the IWGP title became a worthless title to New Japan because they had to give it to someone other than Mercedes, and they no longer had intentions to promote like Mayu Iwatani as champion after putting the belt on her. So they're like, all right, well, bump that. We'll just create a new belt. But then they weren't able to put it on Mercedes. And, I'm not a Stardom expert, but I heard, when Julia was recently the red belt champion, she dropped that title to Tam Nakano. And a lot of people were not happy with that decision and kind of bewildered because they thought she was going to have this long, lengthy reign as champion, and that didn't happen. And now she's the strong champion, and it is weird because you've got 2 New Japan titles sitting on Stardom talent, and I don't know how it's going to shake itself out because it feels superfluous for them to have both of those belts in existence when they don't even have any real women contracted to the company. It feels like at best they should maybe just have one title, but with all these politics in play, they're not going to, and especially since they just launched a second new title, they're not going to merge them this soon, but there's really no point to them both existing. It's very weird. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of them just like kind of disappears. Yeah.
Yeah, and now I've seen people from the company defending this on Twitter and in news releases and kind of saying, we're trying to build up the strong brand, and so we have a strong men's title, tag title, so we need a strong women's title. But I think with doing the monthly shows, I don't even think they need the strong tag titles anymore at this point. So I just don't get kind of the direction of the strong brand and what the titles really mean.
Yeah. I don't know if I 100% agree, although I see where you're coming from. I think some of my opinions on that might have changed a bit with these shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even opposed to them having a strong women's title. I'm opposed to them having an IWGP women's title and a strong women's title all in the space of just a few months. And they don't have any contracted women, and the whole situation is really weird. And it's like, well, yeah, like what is going to happen with the IWGP women's title? Wasn't that supposed to be on big shows? Wasn't that supposed to be cross-promoted? I don't know. It's very strange. So I guess we'll just leave it at that and see where it goes from there. But next match of the evening, we had the IWGP tag team titles on the line as the reigning champions Bishamon defended their titles against the new strong openweight tag team champions, the Bull Club War Dogs, Alex Coughlin and Gabe Kidd. And Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi were able to successfully defend these titles on this evening. 11 minutes and 29 seconds. They retained with the Shoto.
Yeah, so these guys, they picked up where they left off the previous night. They started brawling, right from Bishamon's entrance, and these guys were brawling all around the ringside and finally got into the ring. Once again, another very hard-hitting matchup. I think I like the first night's match a little bit better than this matchup here, but kind of like we were talking about from the previous match, I feel like Bishamon were able to kind of recoup and kind of use their experience teaming together to kind of outmaneuver the kind of like wild chaos style of Coughlin and Gabe Kidd here. And that kind of came down to the end where they were able to get the Shoto and get the win.
Yeah, I thought that the match the previous evening was, even though they were kind of similar, I thought the first night's match was somewhat better. Looks like the inmates on the cage match rating system also agree. But 2 very solid matches, and Bishamon were able to pick up the win here and kind of prove that they're still the dominant champions, I guess.
Yeah, the Bull Club War Dogs did a cool double team muscle buster at one point in this match that I really liked. So, they're really starting to kind of gel as a team and kind of create some cool double team maneuvers. And so, yeah, I'm curious to see, kind of what the game plan is going to be for them going forward now as the strong openweight tag team champions, and what the strong schedule will look like this with both of these guys in the G1. So So we'll see them defend in a while. So yeah, kind of curious to see what the next steps are for these guys.
Awesome. So then the semi-main event, we had the NJPW Strong Openweight title on the line as Kenta, the current reigning champion, as well as the reigning Defy champion, defended his title against Eddie Kingston, and he was unsuccessful in retaining his title. Eddie Kingston is the new NJPW Strong Openweight champion, 13 minutes and 30 seconds, as he won the title with a Northern Lights driver, just like Julia over Willow Nightingale. So the same move used twice on the same evening to win both the men and the women's openweight titles.
Yeah, good matchup here. Like you mentioned in the previous match, just how important it was for Eddie Kingston to finally get to the big stage in Japan, how much he loves New Japan, All Japan, is a student of the game, and to be in the semi-main event of this big sold-out Korakuen Hall show and then end up winning a New Japan title was a big deal to him. And like I said, good matchup here. Beginning of the match, Eddie kind of had the better of Kenta until he chopped the ring post, and then Kenta started working on the arm. Also, the arm was also damaged coming into this match due to the beat down from the Blackpool Combat Club on Dynamite last Wednesday when they Pillmanized his arm. So the arm was already kind of weak coming in here, and he missed a chop and hit the guardrail, and Kenta was able to work on it from there. Then, of course, we got, with this being a 2023 Kenta match, we got the ref bump, and he gets the title belt and tries to hit him with the belt, but then the ref gets the belt and he grabs the Defy title and hits Eddie with that. Gets the double stomp for a believable near fall there. Kingston locks in the stretch plum and tries to get Kenta to tap from there. Kenta comes back for Shining Wizard. Kingston comes back for Enziguri. It's the Hurricane back fist for another great near fall. It's another back fist clothesline, and then, like you mentioned, it's the Northern Lights bomb, and he gets the big win. The 21-year journey, he finished his story. Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, Eddie Kingston, he always gives 110%, and that was definitely the case here, and he seemed to be even more motivated. I mean, he's been so gung-ho working for New Japan just in the States alone, just the idea of working for representing New Japan, but actually doing it in Japan was even the next step and a culmination of his dreams and aspirations. And I felt like Kenta, we didn't get any of the bullshit, that we're used to seeing from Kenta these days. He went out there and did his best to kind of turn back the clock and work as stiff a style as he possibly could and kind of match Eddie Kingston strike for strike. We even got a little bit of coup de grace action from Kenta with the double foot stomp off the top rope at one point. But very good, very hard hitting match. I'd go close to 4 stars on this one. I thought it was very awesome and very emotional. But ultimately seeing Eddie, win his first major singles title in Japan. And yeah, it is the strong openweight title. And maybe at this point, it's not necessarily seen as a necessary belt, but we've seen how Tom Lawler during his reign, how he was able to elevate the importance of this title, month after month with all these incredible title defenses. And then the very, emotional storyline between him and Fred Rosser and how that culminated in Fred Rosser obtaining the title, and that kind of elevated things. And then now to see Eddie sort of take the strap as well. And yeah, there are political reasons behind this, I believe. And me and Jeremy talked about this off the air. Like, it makes all the sense in the world that Eddie going into the G1, being an AEW guy, probably needed to have a little bit of protection so that some of his favorable booking would be plausible. And him coming into G1 with the title is going to be the perfect, kind of plausible deniability for why he gets a little bit of favorable booking. But he's definitely going to take a loss from somebody in that block that's going to be the next viable challenger. And that block is full of killers. So whoever that is, whether that's a Shingo or an Ishii or something, it's going to be really awesome. Even if it's like Aaron Hinare or Evil or whoever, I don't know. But the post match here with Eddie, near tears, near breaking down, and Homicide hugging him, and they're crying, and the crowd is going wild. Like, that was a really special moment in New Japan this year, which New Japan's just been on fire this year, and this was just another of those great moments. And it did make me rethink a little bit the importance of these titles, because it's like, yeah, maybe they're not 100% necessary, but the Strong brand does have a purpose and a place, and these shows kind of show that to me a bit. And I feel like this title win, was meaningful to some degree.
Yeah, it's definitely a big moment for Eddie, and Homicide coming out and celebrating, saying, you did it. I loved when he tried to raise the injured arm, and he's like, ah.
Yeah, he kept selling the injured arm.
But
just like Bryan Danielson.
But yeah, definitely a big moment here for Eddie, and I think, again, like you mentioned, with like Philly Tom, it's definitely the man that makes the title here, and I think that Eddie Kingston, if they allow him, could really help elevate this title and make it a prestigious title in New Japan.
Yeah, I guess this is just, New Japan, the company, New Japan Strong, the place where people that you want to see pushed in AEW and Ring of Honor who don't get pushed can come over here and get belted up.
Oh, man.
Willow, Eddie.
Who's next?
That takes us to our main event of the evening, the final death match. And this was singles action as Jon Moxley took on El Desperado. This was a rematch of the death match that they'd had in New Japan Strong the year prior in Nashville. And this one was really crazy. And for my money, the match of the 2-night event. And yeah, Jon Moxley defeated El Desperado 20 minutes and 33 seconds. And this was much, even though, make no bones about it, this definitely fit the criteria of what most Western fans would classify as a quote unquote death match, because it did have, razor wire, or not razor wire, but it had barbed wire, and it had all the makings of a very bloody, violent death match. There were forks and things like that. But this was much less worked in the style of a death match, the way that the previous night's match was, and much more worked stylistically to the layout of a big singles New Japan house style match in just terms of match structure. And it was very wild. These guys brawled all over the building. We saw tables, we saw chairs, we saw trash cans, and barbed wire boards and forks. And these guys definitely went at it. And the tail end of the match was very, very, very emotional. And they started to almost kind of, Jeremy, I went into this match thinking there's no way that Desperado could beat Jon Moxley. And they didn't 100% get me to suspend my disbelief, because I kind of always knew that Jon Moxley wasn't going to jog to Desperado no matter what happened, especially considering, and they brought this up on commentary, Desperado's never won a singles death match in his entire career.
Yeah.
He's only had a handful of them, but every time he's becoming known for them, but he's never won one. He loses every time he's in that environment. And there's almost sort of like a fighting spirit sort of element to, like, he just keeps coming back for more punishment so he can grow and like learn and become stronger. But like, he's not necessarily successful in these environments. And I believe this is the last one we're ever going to see between him and Jon Moxley, but he was not able to beat Jon Moxley in this evening. He came close a few times, but and he kicked out of the version, the Death Rider version 1 variation, not the high angled version, but he did kick out of one, but ultimately, the shooter version, but he ended up being defeated in the end by the high angled Death Rider for the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, this was another crazy matchup here. I mean, from the beginning of the match, they already had the barbed wire boards set up in the corners of the ring. Like I mentioned, Desperado, he comes out again with the guitar and the roses, kind of harkening back to when he first came into New Japan Pro Wrestling, and both of them coming out of the crowds just kind of gave you this kind of big fight feel. And then from there, yeah, all the plunder. You know, we had the presence of the Japanese tables. They did a spot where Moxley tried to elbow drop, through the tables, but of course, strong style table, they don't break, and he tried a couple times to put him through it, but yeah, that table was not breaking. And they say it's more painful when the table doesn't break on spots like that.
Yeah, that strong style table, bro. Well, you know what? I don't know, because those tables are so stiff. Like, I don't even know if it actually hurts worse or not. He just kind of rolled through, but yeah.
Yeah, and Moxley Pillmanized the ankle. He got the fork out and was stabbing Despy with the fork. Whipped him into the barbed wire board. Pile driver for a near fall. Yeah, just a lot of just wild, kind of insane spots. Once again, cheese grater came out, and Despy was cheese grating Moxley's forehead. So yeah, these guys are doing all kind of crazy spots. We did have a shout out to Jun Kasai, who was on commentary for this match, and Despy put his goggles on and did the splash that he does onto Moxley for a near fall. So yeah, these guys are just going back and forth doing a lot of crazy spots. And like you mentioned, Despy was able to kick out of the short arm Death Rider, and really firing up, like you mentioned, kind of showing his fighting spirit. But towards the end there, Moxley hit the curb stomp and put him away with the elevated Death Rider.
Yeah, and I mean, right now I'm looking at the cage match ratings, and like, this is only the 8th highest rated match in New Japan this year, and it's sitting at an 8.88. So New Japan, I'm not going to sit here and say it's back, but like, boy, they're having a fantastic year, and this main event was the culmination of 2 really great shows back to back. 2 things I'd like to say about this. One, I love Jon Moxley in New Japan. For longtime listeners, if you might recall, I had some hesitations about Jon Moxley's involvement with New Japan when he first got here during the G1. And some of that revolved around the work that was being done, and some of that revolved around the booking that was being given to him at the time. And a lot of those fears that I had have kind of been put to rest, because as time's gone on, yeah, Jon Moxley gets favorable booking. Yeah, he rarely loses, but he also always helps the bottom line in very favorable ways. He's also one of the few guys that works on the other side, speaking of, like, say, a big company like AEW, who's willing to come in and do these kinds of shots on the regular. And there's not very many big stars from AEW or any other part of the world that's going to come in and do a death match with El Desperado and Cork and Hall just
Right.
because they want to. Like, that just, so you have to really respect and love what this guy brings to the table. And, he's got a blood and guts match coming up. He has his own things going on in his own company. But like, he wrestled his ass off these 2 nights, and he could have easily rested on the fact that, like, hey, I'm here. Here's my star presence. I'm gonna do a spot. I'm gonna bleed, but that's it. He could have done a smoke and mirrors. This man did not do smoke and mirrors. This man, like, he wanted all the smoke, and he got his ass beat, and he beat ass, and like, that's what's great about Jon Moxley in New Japan. Even more than a few weeks ago, someone asked us, like, what's the real big difference between him in New Japan and AEW? And there's not really a huge difference, but like, he's not doing this shit in AEW, bro. He's just not. This was awesome.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to say that I was wrong on that. The other thing that I'm not going to say I'm 100% wrong, but we've had some over the years, especially me, I've had some criticisms of New Japan Strong just in general. because it wasn't necessarily, it was like geared to the US market, but it wasn't necessarily expanding New Japan to like get on TV and that sort of thing. And I'm so, kind of wondering like, what is this going to be? How's it going to be? And then even when they switched formats recently, we've had some, some hesitations about that and what's the right business move. But to see this company bring this brand over to Japan, and yeah, it is still distinctly New Japan in essence, but there's also a very distinct American style wrestling presentation that's mixed in there that's wholly unique from what you see on a regular New Japan show. I think that's cool. And I think that is something that maybe when we're watching these quote unquote strong shows in the US, people are missing because they're like, I want New Japan. Well, it's like, well, it is New Japan, but it's New Japan Strong because it is still slightly US based. Not everybody that was involved with New Japan Strong was able to come over and be part of this, but to see the guys that were able to endear themselves to management, to the office, and to be able to come over here after all these years of struggle and everything, and actually be on these shows and be in Japan and show their work. I think that that's fantastic. Do I think that New Japan Strong across the board has been perfect? No, I don't. But to see them go from empty arenas in the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood studio to this was fucking awesome, and I think there is room for New Japan Strong, whatever that might be moving forward.
Yeah, we had Rocky on here, episode 200, kind of talking about the creation of New Japan Strong, and it was kind of just a thing on the fly. Like, we're in COVID pandemic, we have all these US based wrestlers that they can't get to Japan right now. What are we going to do with them? And yeah, like you mentioned, they started doing these empty arena weekly TV shows, and yeah, what it's turned into now, it's been great, and something that wasn't, they were talking about it, but there was no like concrete game plan, and to kind of just pull a switch and to see it evolve as it's go, it's been kind of cool to kind of see it from the ground up. And like you mentioned, there's definitely stuff we kind of question or might have criticisms on, but overall, I think for the most part, I think we've always kind of enjoyed the Strong brand, and especially like the big matchups, and Filthy Tom's title reign, and bringing in Aussie Open and Team Filthy and the LA Dojo Young Lions. Ren Narita really got to shine on that brand. So overall, the brand has done a lot of great stuff, and I think any criticism we do have is we say that because we want to see the brand grow and be the best it can be and help New Japan out. And I think these two shows were definitely a great step in helping New Japan out.
Okay, so certainly there's definitely been some business criticisms for sure. We've had issues with the presentation, some of the business stuff, and some of the stuff that affects New Japan. But when you talk about what New Japan Strong represented for the workers, that's a different thing. And I think that that's where a lot of New Japan Strong success lies and where you can rest your laurels, because were everybody that was involved with New Japan Strong, some of the bigger names like, we could throw a few out there, Barrett Brown or
Adrian Quest,
Mysterioso, some of those types of guys, were they able to be on this show? No. Will they in the future? Who knows? I don't know. Like, we haven't really seen them too much on this new iteration of New Japan Strong. But those guys were given a platform, and I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't know that there was anybody that appeared on New Japan Strong that didn't benefit in one way or another. Like, did it make everybody's career that was involved with it? Probably not. But there are people that are here right now, like Bad Dude Tito, like Royce Isaacs, like Jarrell Nelson, JR Kratos, people,
DKC,
the LA Dojo. A lot of those guys, you wouldn't know them, and they wouldn't be working in Japan, and it probably up to this point did make their careers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For the guys that maybe it didn't, it definitely gave them booking power for working indies and, being able to ask for a better rate and being able to say, like, I've been on this platform. I got this experience. I've worked with Rocky Romero. I worked with Kenta. I worked with, Jeff Cobb. The list goes on and on. And there's many of those people that, and there was a time where a lot of the guys that were working strong were getting poached by NXT. It didn't work out for all of them, but a lot of people got launched to go to NXT. A lot of people got launched to go to Ring of Honor and AEW and Impact Pro Wrestling. And a lot of those guys are working internationally on the indies. There's so many people that would not have been able to work in the pandemic era. Not only were able to work, but also were able to get exposure and were able to expand their talents to other places and ask for more money because they were able to be on this show. So from that standpoint, I do think that it holds a pretty important place. And, hats off to Rocky and everybody else that was involved with this project. And then to see it, expand into what it is now. And like, do I think that the US expansion is perfect? Like, no, but these two shows were fucking awesome. Like, I give these shows the highest recommendation that I could give them for the year. They were so much fun. They were a blast to watch. Everybody was working their asses off. And like, normally I'm pretty critical of the idea of like a $30, 2-night pay-per-view experience from New Japan, but like, these were pretty much worth it, honestly.
Yeah, these shows are great, and you had the great New Japan World production, so there was none of the fight issues you would normally get with a strong branded show. So yeah, production wise, it's great. The wrestling was great. John Moxley in the post match, he said that when he's in Japan, that he is the king of NJPW, and he says that Cork and Hall is the heartbeat of professional wrestling. And everyone around the world knows it. And he said he was baptized in fire at Cork and Hall, and a piece of his heart will always be here in Tokyo. So
I saw an article where he said he's aiming for the IWGP title now. He's held the AEW title and the WWE title, and nobody has held those two titles as well as the IWGP. He wants to be the first. So, who knows?
Yeah, pre-COVID, I thought we were, lining up John Moxley to potentially be a challenger and contender going into 2020 and potentially winning that title. But obviously COVID happened and things have changed up. But clearly we know that he wants to continue to work New Japan. And I think with his new AEW contract, he's like, quote unquote, like the ambassador for, between AEW and New Japan. And him and his conversation with Rocky were, one of the keys that really kind of helped open the quote-unquote forbidden door between New Japan and AEW. So Moxley loves New Japan very much, and I know people are probably not going to like it, but I do think he is a guy that would be worthy of being IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Obviously, the politics surrounding that, how often would he be able to make defenses? There's some concern there, but I do think he would be a great champion.
If I would have no problem with John Moxley being champion, as long as it's in the right time of the year to where he can make the right dates. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Does the champion need to be on every Road 2 show? Of course
no.
But there are times where the champion needs to be around, and it can't just be for the big 4 shows.
Right.
You can't just show up the one time. There needs to be some dates in addition to a big show that the champion shows up. But I think that if you're creative in the way that you do it, you could definitely work that out. But, if it's going to be a situation, I mean, honestly, at this point, with the way that things have shook out with Kenny Omega as a US champion, that fucking sucked. Like, there's no getting around it. It was dog shit. It fucking sucked. It really, really sucked. So if it's anything like that, that would be horrible.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody wants that.
Yeah, but I think with Moxley, I mean, again, like you mentioned earlier, like coming to these Corkin show, like he didn't have to do these Corkin shots, and we've seen him make an effort of wanting to do especially some of these smaller New Japan dates and do the US New Japan shows. So I feel like Moxley would be a guy who would fight to come over more and defend that title. Again, I don't know if Kenny did or not, or what the deal with Kenny not coming back more, but I feel like Moxley would definitely kind of be more gung-ho to be coming over. He could probably want to be on the Road 2 shows, and he would probably fight for that.
Right. And again, it doesn't have to be every one of them, but you need to, if you're strategic in the way you do it, I'm sure you could work it out.
Yeah.
We did have some questions about this match as well as the follow-up of the show that we should probably speed through.
Yeah, so Hawaiian Punch BV on Reddit says, with all the deathmatch Desperado we've been getting, when are we getting some deathmatch Shingo? One of the reasons that he left Dragon Gate was that he wanted to do more death matches.
I'm not the booker, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Let's do it. Last Commission 7252 says, has both independent shows, in your opinion, are in close contention to New Japan shows like Sakura Genesis, Dominion, and Wrestling Dontaku?
Great shows, both of them top to bottom. They're very comparable, but I feel like the second night is maybe the better show just because of the more singles matches, more title matches, title changes, and some angles, that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think that they're that far off from some of these better shows that New Japan's produced this year.
Yeah, they're definitely great show. I would say maybe Dominion was overall maybe better show, but I mean, it was right up there with, a Sakura Genesis, Dontaku. Reddit user fecal_soup says, would having
why is that your name?
Would having these strong Independence Day shows in Korakuen be a yearly event like Fantastica Mania be something that you guys would enjoy?
If they're like this, yes.
Yeah, I mean, these shows are booked perfectly, so yeah, this kind of replaces that Honor Rising tour, and you throw every summer, every 4th of July, we're gonna have the strong Independence Day shows. I'd be down. He says, besides obviously having someone like a Fred Rosser come over, are there any other wrestlers that you'd enjoyed coming over on a show like this, or are there any wrestlers that you wish would come over more? It's been a minute since I've seen Bad Dude Tito or Zayn come over, and it's good to see them again.
Well, I think New Japan probably needs to shit or get off the pot when it comes to Filthy Tom Lawler. He's not even in the G1 this year, and it is a little bit of a glaring omission, the fact that neither him nor anybody from Team Filthy are even in the G1 Climax, considering how many slots there are this year. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that I feel like is probably going to get signed to AEW sooner rather than later, and we're going to just have to see him go. But most of the guys that were here, I thought it was awesome to see them come here. I'm not sure that there's any major names that were omitted that were from New Japan Strong, but some of the ones we brought up, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to them coming over at some point either.
Yeah, I think the biggest name that was missing was Fred Rosser, and there was a statement that was put on NJPW1972.com, and he apologized, and there was a situation where he just couldn't make the show. So also he was kind of the biggest name associated with that brand that probably wasn't there. But I mean, obviously there's a lot of workhorse guys that would be cool to see. I mean, Young Fuego, Adrian Quest, Barrett Brown and Bateman, Mysterioso, the Stray Dog Army was another kind of foundation of Strong. Besides those guys, I mean, also there was a ton of indie guys that they brought in, but those are probably some of the names that would be cool to see eventually get a shot in Japan. He says, next question, MJSPR says the Independence Day crowds at Korakuen were red hot. Do these reactions signal a desire for more breaks from tradition? And does that worry you at all?
Not really, because, I mean, Korakuen Hall, yeah, it's a 1,400 seat crowd, but it's Tokyo. Tokyo is a very populous city, and there's a lot of different types of wrestling fans that are attracted to different brands. Clearly, I'm not saying that the fans that were there weren't New Japan fans, but, it's like this was kind of a niche show, similar to like Fantastica Mania, similar to like the Honor Risings. And I don't know if that basically is a key indicator that the overall fan base is wanting to see this type of style of work in their New Japan. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. That's something they could probably toy around with. And earlier in the show, you kind of asked me to go through the history. One thing I forgot to mention, there have been several other sub brands of New Japan in the past. I forget the name of them all, but there was like WrestleLand and Never was a brand at one point, and I forget, there was a few others, but there were also some like death match style wrestling that occurred on those sub brands as well. And they didn't at the time amount to major changes in New Japan because that's just what they were. They were sub brands with different styles of wrestling than what New Japan typically does. Am I opposed to New Japan changing with the times and then, instituting some of this stuff? Not at all, but it needs to make sense. It needs to be something that's going to get over, that the crowds are going to be happy about. And I really don't think we're ever going to see a day where like, they go the way of the Attitude Era and like we're going to see a bunch of, gimmick matches on the shows. It's just, it's not ever going to be like that. So I'm okay with the occasional, changing of things on a major show or whatever.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, with Fantastica Mania on Horizon, it's not like they did. Those shows always sell out. They're always popular. We never got like a year's worth of Fantastica Manias. We don't get a Tokyo Dome Fantastica Mania or Tokyo Dome on Horizon. So I don't think these shows being popular is going to hurt anything with the brand. We're still going to get the traditional New Japan style on these really big shows, but I think it's a kind of a great way to present something different. Like you mentioned, there's a ton of different tastes in wrestling, and we saw there was a ton of ghouls in the crowd, a lot of fans of Jun Kasai that came to these shows. Like there's different types of fans that you can attract to a sub-brand like this, offer something unique, and also, again, it kind of helps with the Western expansion as well, also trying to establish a strong brand in Japan, so that way when it comes back over to America, it's more of a commodity and it helps draw here. Then last question here from Oscar Rooney on Twitter says, I felt that this was a special NJPW show, not the best show, special because it meant a lot to the wrestlers. Do you agree? You're on mute, Josh.
Sorry. I thought the shows were great. I thought they were great because the shows themselves were great, but also because it was very important to the talent that were involved, and that was very apparent.
Yeah, I mean, like just seeing like the emotional moment there with Eddie Kingston and him, crying after winning that title, like this opportunity meant a lot for a lot of these guys. And I know people are saying, what are the strong names should have been there? But I mean, they got a lot of great guys that work strong on there. Eddie, Team Filthy, Bad Dude Tito, Zane, DKC. There were a lot of guys on these cards that grinded through this project of Strong Out Zane, and for them to all get this opportunity to be on this stage and to get a spotlight here and to be on pay-per-view, I think it's a pretty cool thing. So let's move into the news now. So one big news story we got to talk about, we got a post from New Japan Pro Wrestling saying, in recognition of their quick ascension in the ranks of New Japan Pro Wrestling and desire to lead a new generation with NJPW, Shota Umino, Ren Narita, and Yota Tsuji will be collectively known as the Reiwa Three Musketeers. So we know that we are in the Reiwa era. And New Japan officially labeling these guys as the new Three Musketeers. All these guys have commented and saying they don't want to be labeled as a Musketeer. There's been a lot of back and forth. We've seen Gabe Kidd and the LA Dojo guys saying we are the real Three Musketeers. We're more over. We've made it more than these guys. So, and then there's just been a lot of interesting discourse on Twitter, online about whether or not these guys should have been labeled this, whether it's detrimental, and a lot of kind of back and forth here. Josh, what do you think about these guys being labeled as the Reiwa Three Musketeers by the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, I think it's a really smart way for them to drum up a lot of talking points and controversy and interest from the fans and passion and, create dialogue and storylines. I don't know if I necessarily see it as a truly long-term marketing campaign that's going to stick. I know in the past, for those that are not aware, the original Three Musketeers were Chono, Muto, and Hashimoto in the 90s, and then in the 2000s, late 2000s, 2010s, they had the new era Musketeers, which was like Tanahashi, Nakamura, and Shibata. And I think at one point, Wataru Inui might have been considered one of the Three Musketeers before Nakamura came around, because that's one thing people forget. Nakamura is not the same generation as Tanahashi and Shibata. He came out like 2 or maybe like 3 or 4 years after them. But I could be wrong on that. But regardless, eventually it became known as Nakamura and those other two. And now we have this new storyline, and who knows? Maybe it was a true blue marketing idea that they really want to label these guys as the Musketeers, and that's fine if it is. I don't totally buy it. I think the fact that these guys are all going into the same block in the G1, the fact that it creates a lot of dialogue between them as well as the other, Bullet Club War Dog guys, and then you sort of have like Uemura, who's on the outside, and he's from the same generation. He's getting ready to come back from excursion at any time, and he's kind of like left out in the cold. Then you've got like Great Okan, who's also not a part of it. And then at the same time, all of these guys have issues with Okada. And then you have the old guard of New Japan, who all have something to say about this. I think it's a brilliant storyline that has just been kicked off through the new medium of social media. And I think it's something that the office basically knew was going to stir controversy. There's a lot of, we call, like the Shinhan freaks that are like bought this hook, line, and sinker, and they're all arguing with each other about who the real ace is going to be and who's really deserving of this and what's right, what's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's just a brilliant way for them to create tension between the characters so that they all want to fight each other, so that we all want to see them fight each other, so they can all prove who's really the best. And since we're going into this transitionary period where, eventually someone's going to succeed Okada, what better way to do that than to create, issues between these guys? I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a way, especially since we didn't really have a show that's really going to build to G1 to help create some more tension. Like, this was a great way. Like you mentioned, all these guys are in that A block with Sonata. So yeah, it creates more tension between those guys, and they don't want to be Musketeers. They don't want to be lumped together. They all want to be the ace, and they all want to beat Okada. And so now they have more kind of incentive to want to one-up each other and beat each other to prove like, all right, we're not Musketeers. Like, I'm an ace, and I'm trying to beat Okada. So yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think it's going to lead to several storyline opportunities. It can kind of build, a few of like the LA Dojo guys against these guys, and of course, Yuya Uemura is still on excursion on Impact, and he loves playing around on Twitter, telling people he's not a part of New Japan and he's signed full time with Impact. But sources in the company say that he's still a part of New Japan, so he's I gotta guess he's got to be coming back sometime soon as well. So you still got Great Okan that's there as well. Like, so there's a lot of guys that this announcement affects and kind of creates story and rivalries. I think it's gonna be great.
I think it's gonna be great too. A couple other news items. Jon Moxley defeated Tomohiro Ishii this last Wednesday on Dynamite. How awesome was that match?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, Moxley and Ishii, two guys I don't miss, and also their G1 match was great. And so yeah, they had another great matchup here on cable TV. It was awesome.
CMLL presented New Japan Fantasticmania Mexico on June 30th, 2023 from Arena Mexico. I believe this is pay-per-view only. You have to sign up, I think, on YouTube through their membership. But we have the results here. Los Infernales, that's Dark Silhouette, Lluvia, and Zuexis. They defeated La Catalina, La Huarquita, and Stephanie Vacor. There's a best 2 out of 3 falls tag team match between Doki and Akamoris. They defeated Aodas and Captain Suicida. Lightning match between El Santanico and Tiger Mask went to a time limit draw of 10 minutes. 2 out of 3 falls match as Mascara Dorada 2.0 defeated El Desperado 12 minutes and 53 seconds. Best 2 out of 3 falls 6-man tag team match as Los Ingobernables de Japón, Bushi, Naito, and Titan defeated Atlantis Jr., Mystico, and Soberano Jr. I learned that there was during one of the following CMLL shows, I don't know which one it was, but there was issues between the LIJ team and the current Ingobernables team that exists in CMLL, and it's sort of like a civil war storyline kicking off between them. So I guess we'll learn more about that. And then the main event, which I heard was highly rated, the NWA World Historic Welterweight title. Rocky Romero successfully defended the title against Volador Jr. 22 minutes and 2 seconds. Something we definitely need to check out. And congratulations to Rocky once again. July 9th, this coming weekend, Red Pro Epic Encounter. Will Ospreay will be taking on Leon Slater. Zack Sabre Jr. takes on Jordan Breaks. Filthy Tom Lawler will take on Luke Jacobs. And the Undisputed British Championship will be on the line as Great Khan defends the title against Michael Oku. One last thing I didn't see here, but I thought was worth making mention on July 2nd, Dragon Gate Kobe Pro Wrestling Festival 2023. Shingo Takagi successfully defeated Kono Mama Ichikawa twice on the same evening, once in a 17-second victory, and then I guess right after that, I don't know the story, but he fought him again and beat him by TKO 5 minutes and 55 seconds. And then later in the evening, Hiromu Takahashi defeated Yamato 14 minutes and 33 seconds.
Nice. And we have a couple questions here, and then we'll go to recommended match of the week and wrap the show up here. So 3 questions here from Les Commission 7252. First, it says, who has a brighter future and could become the face of Japanese wrestling? Kiyomiya, Umino, Tsuji, or Narita?
You know what, for me, and this is just based off of what I've seen so far, and I could be completely wrong, but I'm going with Tsuji, man. I think that Tsuji has an X factor, a certain charisma that the other 3 guys maybe don't have.
And he also has the size too. Like, he's tall and he's bigger than these guys, and he has the athleticism to go with that too. So to me, he's kind of like very well rounded. Like, he has the look, he has the wrestling ability, like you mentioned, the charisma. I don't really know about his promo because also we don't speak Japanese, but it seems like he can cut a decent promo. So, I mean, I feel like he kind of has everything. Where I feel like all the other guys kind of they're really strong in one area. Where I feel like Tsuji's more kind of strong in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I mean, I and it might not end up being him. I've heard some people say that everything about him screams Dark Ace, but the thing I always try to tell people is we're in a transitionary period, so I wouldn't try and focus too much on the history of New Japan and use that as an indication of what they will or won't do. I mean, sure, there are certain proclivities they have, but ultimately, we're in a transitionary period where anybody could end up being the ace. I mean, Oiwa could end up being the ace, could be Uemura as well. So, I mean, those are all possibilities, but just given those 4 choices he gave me, I think Tsuji has the most upside personally, and that's mainly based on charisma. That's the main thing I'm going off of there.
Yeah, I agree with you. He also asked, if Kiyomiya ends up facing Okada and defeating him, would it make sense for him to defeat Sanada if they indeed already have planned for him to defeat Okada? I don't think it would be smart to have him defeat the world champion and New Japan's top guy for the past decade.
I mean, it's the G1, so anything could happen. I mean, if you're going to have him beat Sanada, then he should get a title shot against Sanada, in the near future. But he might, he doesn't have to beat Sanada to wind up in a situation where he faces Okada.
Yeah, I think there's definitely ways to do it. I think that makes sense. I mean, Yeah, I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. You could have it where he ends up beating Sonata for the title, and you have a kind of crazy story of him kind of holding the title hostage and then defends against Okada at Wrestle Kingdom.
I don't even remember us talking about that, but that would be crazy.
His last question says, if the plan is for Okada to possibly face Danielson, Kiyomiya, or any of the young stars, does this mean the Okada versus Ospreay story will be finished here in the G1?
No.
Yeah, I think there's, New Japan, they tell, long, term stories. And I think also right now, Ospreay's main story and focus has been this rivalry with Kenny Omega. And I think, like he said, his Ospreay's whole goal this year is, if he can't beat Kenny, then he was going to be done. And will he beat Kenny at Forbidden Door? And we know that rivalry is not open based off of what they said on Dynamite last week. Kenny saying he wants a rematch and Will saying, I know a place we can do it. So I think that once they complete the Kenny Will storyline, and if Will resigns, because all reports are saying his contract is up February of next year. And all his comments have stated that he wants to stay with New Japan. If he stays with New Japan, I think we will get, the big Ospreay Okada Tokyo Dome match probably for Wrestle Kingdom 19. Then last question here from Hawaiian Punch BV says, GLEAT recently announced Kota Ibushi for their big Ryogoku Sumo Hall show. Fujita Jr. Hayato defending GLEAT's UWF Championship against Ibushi is something that I want to happen on that show. With GLEAT mostly working with AJPW now, do you think that NJPW will work with them again? Would Ibushi work with NJPW again if they did?
Well, I'm glad that Ibushi's back and he's working with them on that show. And yeah, I would love to see him in Junior Hayato. But, there was a news report we didn't cover in the news, but there's an expectation that they may bring Ibushi into AEW here in the near future. There have been talks, and that's kind of the talk that a lot of the talent sort of expect him to be made an offer and maybe even come in for the Blood and Guts program. And they've done dual contracts in the past, and there have also been news reports that the issues that existed between him and New Japan have been put to rest, and that there is the possibility he might even return to New Japan. So I think there's a speculation out there right now that long-term, the landing place for him would be some sort of dual contract situation between New Japan and AEW, where he would probably primarily work in AEW. And I think that that's pretty plausible.
Yeah, all signs are definitely pointing to him being the fifth man for the Elite for the Blood and Guts match coming up in a couple of weeks in Boston. And like you mentioned, a lot of reports of people kind of expecting Ibushi to start with AEW pretty soon. So I do think that with AEW's relationship with New Japan, we could see Ibushi work with New Japan again. But again, it's Kota Ibushi. It's very kind of hard to predict exactly what he's going to do and when he's going to do it and what his mindset is at the time of things. So I could see him being a guy that's kind of wrestles kind of wherever he wants to wrestle, because he's a top star, and I think he has the kind of the stroke to kind of go where he wants to go. Well, that's going to take us to recommended and excursion matches of the week. So last week for the recommended match, I recommended Shibata versus Hanma from G1 Climax 24.
Yeah, this match has a 4 3/4 rating from Dave Meltzer and a 9.17 rating on Cage Match. One of the highest rated New Japan matches that are out there. It's from G1 Climax 24 Night 8, which actually is like one of the more legendary cards New Japan ever did, because it's all block tournament matches, and let's count them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 matches that are all at or near the 4-star range, maxing out with this match in particular as being the highest rated of the evening. And so, yeah, there's like 8 just classic bangers all on the same night. Yeah, the G124 was fucking wild. Anyways, Shibata versus Hanma just fucking rules. I mean, it's barely over. It's under 11 minutes, 10 minutes and 47 seconds. If you've never seen it, you need to go out of your way and check this out. And this was smack dab in the middle of Hanma, being in the midst of Hanma Mania. If you're not familiar with what that is, this was a time where, Tomoaki Hanma was brought into the G1 Climax. He was sort of an unlikely participant and someone that was not winning any matches, but he was fighting so hard in his tournament matches that like the crowd were becoming enthralled with him, and he was easily becoming one of the most popular wrestlers in all of New Japan. And I know for a lot of people he firmly falls into like dad status these days, but at this time he was over, like one of the most over guys in the company, but he was losing every single night. And this was an ongoing story from G1 to G1. Like it took a long time before he picked up his first G1 victory, but this match with Shibata, he threw everything he had at Shibata. And this has got to be one of the most violent and stiff matches in the history of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Just 10 minutes of wild craziness. They brawl on the outside, they brawl on the inside. And not only are they mixing in very, very serious violence, but like the drama created in the match because Shibata is trying to hit the turnbuckle drop kick and he keeps missing, and at the same time like Hanma's trying to hit the Kokeshi and he keeps missing. And there's one point where Hanma just throws his big ass head straight into Shibata's face as hard as he possibly can, and he just it's one of the sickest shoot headbutts you've ever seen. Just fucking flies right into his face like a suicide dive, but like for real. And both guys are bleeding. It's gross, but it's a crazy match. But ultimately, Shibata gets him in the GTS, hits the PK 1, 2, 3, gets him out of there. The crowd was rabid for Hanma. They wanted Hanma to win here, and he threw everything he could at Shibata, but he wasn't able to pick up the victory on this night or the next night or the next night or the next night. But an incredible match. I mean, it's got to be one of the greatest sub 10-minute matches in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, excellent match. Then for the excursion match of the week, you picked Robbie X versus Will Ospreay from the 1PW show in April. This was another awesome matchup here. Just kind of reminds me of almost like the Ric Flair template of, the established, world champion guy going to face like the promotion's local hero and having a great match with him, giving him some shine, but then ultimately, overcoming that hero and, being the top guy he is. And I think that was kind of the formula here that we got in this matchup. 1PW being the home promotion of Robbie X, Will Ospreay, the big, British star coming in. And I thought it was a match that really did help, try to get Robbie X over. And, he called himself the king of the cruiserweights, and he had a lot of great high-flying maneuvers against Will Ospreay. And Will was more of kind of the bruiser powerhouse. We've kind of seen Will kind of adapt his style, doing the spinning, tilt-a-roll backbreaker, more strike-based offense. So Will tried to keep Robbie grounded and use more of the power offense to negate some of the high-flying, but Robbie did get a lot of great moves and still a lot of great near falls. But towards the end, Will hit the hidden blade from the front, but Robbie kicked out for a great near fall there. And then eventually Will had to put him away with the Stormbreaker to get the win.
So in terms of excursion match, your contendership, where do you see this one going?
I think it's a fringe contender right now. I think I'm like 4 1/4, 4.5 range. So I think that it's something that's probably going to be on like the chopping block by the time we get to November.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let's jump into this week's recommendations, and I'm going to start us off. It's kind of New Japan, but not quite. Throwing it back to the New Japan / WCW Starrcade 1995 World Cup of Wrestling, and my recommended match of the week is Shinjiro Otani representing New Japan Pro Wrestling taking on Eddie Guerrero of WCW for the WCW World Cup tournament.
Nice. That should be fun to check out. And then for the excursion match of the week, gonna go with Willie Mack versus El Desperado from the June 29th edition of Ring of Honor TV.
Okay. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention Nagata lost the All Japan title to Aoyagi.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah.
So there's that too.
Well, that's it. That's going to wrap things up for us here this week. Next we'll be back to preview G1 Climax 33 with Chris Samsa. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media on Twitter. The show is at KI Strong Style. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. Follow the network at Social Suplex on Facebook. Facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. Also created a Threads account. You can follow at Social Suplex on Threads. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan on Threads.
Yeah, I was going to say, should we go there? Like, they're doing a 600 count, but like, I'm not on Twitter enough to do like 600. That seems like too. I know for some people that seems like too little, but that's like too much. Like I don't look at 600 tweets a day, so I don't know. But shit seems like it's broken. But I fucking hate Mark Zuckerberg, so I don't want to be on. I don't know what we do. Also, I don't want to do any more social media.
We got to go with the trends where the people are going. So
are they there? I don't know.
Yeah, there's been over 30 million people that have signed up for Threads like in the first day.
All right, chill.
So follow us on Threads. I'll probably create a Keeping It Strong Style Threads as well.
Well, bro. But how's that gonna work? Because I'm not doing the stuff we do on Twitter on Threads too. That's too much.
Well, I'll copy and paste. We'll figure it out.
Oh my god, this is too much.
Email me.
Can we link them together so it just does it at the same time? That would be the best thing.
Hopefully, one of these social media management tools will.
They're not gonna let us because those guys are trying to fight each other in the Roman Coliseum.
Yeah, now Musk is trying to sue Zuck for Threads, so it's gonna be interesting.
Well, they said they stole it all. I mean, I don't know.
A lot of people steal gimmicks to make it better. So, but yeah, you can also email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite hosted by Floyd and Austin. The AEW Match Guide podcast hosted by Sir Sam. And the Great Match Generator hosted by Danny Kukler. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Itchy Bob.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.